Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to reconvene in open session. We'll begin with commissioners' comments. Vice President Baker.
Yeah, just one recommendation, or not, or just a thought, and I'd like to support the commissioners moving forward with a letter of opposition for the perennial solar farm out on routes, I believe it's 63. And I don't know if there's a letter already prepared or if there's something in the making or anything like that there, but I would certainly like to see the commissioners support a letter of opposition to go to the hearing body.
Can we prepare a letter and have commissioners review and go from there?
Maybe we could do something similar to the Kiefer Funk project that we opposed, but add more teeth to it.
Just,
Certainly could. I might suggest that it's a bit premature in the process. You may want to hear what some of the evidence and testimony is, and then you'd have additional material to consider in developing your argument.
Is that all right?
Could I get a copy of the letter of could we get a copy of the letter of opposition that was supported for the Kiefer Funk property that's already prepared?
Yes.
Or something to,
We might have that in our emails too.
yeah, if you could, yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
All right. Terry, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Kiefer?
Yes, I have two items here. I passed out to my fellow commissioners a copy of a petition that was given to me by some residents of Hancock, and I was asked to pass that on to my counterparts on the commission here. They are in opposition to an address change for their property. Just a reminder, I believe tonight from 5 to 7, there is a meeting in Hancock to discuss that. I hope to attend if I'm able to, but I promised them I would pass that along to you, so there's their names and contact information should you have any questions from them. The other item I have is I've had some employees over the last couple months mention to me that items that they've asked for inclusion onto our agenda item don't make it to our docket for consideration. And I was hoping that I would be able to, we could all have maybe a list of those agenda item requests, whether they make it on the agenda or not, just so I'm better informed, and that way we are all better informed of what the requests are in our county, what's going on in the organization. That way maybe we want to research something a little bit more ourselves, but I understand maybe not everything does need to come as an agenda item. Maybe it's settled in-house, but I think it would be helpful for me to know what those requests are. That way I'm not left in the dark. I think I can make the best decisions possible when I have all of the information. So I would just like a list periodically of all the agenda items, whether they make it to the agenda docket or not.
I'd be interested in hearing from you what those are, because to my knowledge, if something's appropriate for the agenda, it's being placed on it.
Well, I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
If we can have a list going forward.
There's a deadline for the departments,
So you're saying everything,
11 days, but that doesn't mean we can't add. So
everything that's presented or asked for put on the agenda? Or are some of the things eliminated, some of the requests eliminated?
Generally, if it's appropriate to be on the agenda, they are placed on the agenda. There are times when further
do you
information
have
is
anything else to
requested.
add?
That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt or whoever would want to go?
I don't have much to say this morning. Good morning. Good, glad to see it full of people. Daggone, it makes it exciting. Don't have much report. I was out of town for a while last week, so nothing really exciting in my agenda. Joined the North American Rod and Gun Club. I don't know if that's exciting or not. But with that being said, we did do a ceremony yesterday for the Stube downtown, the German restaurant, on their expansion. Very well attended. I would encourage everybody to stop in and have a meal there. It's expanded. I don't know what the seating is now, but did they say what the seating was, Court?
I don't remember what they said, but it said it doubled.
It doubled the seating, so it functions, and they really do a nice job down there. So I'd encourage people to stop by. That's about all I have. Go ahead, Court.
Got a list of stuff since I wasn't here last week, and some of it's some Mako stuff. We have 3 bills that I would like the commissioners to get a vote so we can send a letter of approval. 2 of them we've talked about, and they've been our priorities for the delegation. That's House Bill 1485 and House Bill 1496. They're the Medicaid reimbursement increase. is the one. So it basically it's a step up that's submitted. This year we'd get the $100 plus mileage, and then every year it would bump up by $25 until we get to $300 plus mileage, which would be close to what the other states are paying. Pennsylvania is $300 plus mileage, and West Virginia is $377.50 plus mileage. And then the other bill, 1485, they are separated so that we, instead of trying to combine them, that we make sure if we get one, we get one. Don't fight for everything. The other one is reclassification to get paid. Currently, to get a Medicaid reimbursement, you have to have what's called a transfer of care, which basically means the ambulance has to take you to the hospital, and the hospital then has to take care. So if they do not go to a hospital, they refuse care, we gave them meds, a Narcan or whatever out on there, we get nothing. If they refuse care, they do not do a transfer care, we get nothing. This basically states that, hey, if we've went out to you and we've given you service, we're going to be able to get something. So that's the 1485. The other, House Bill 737, we'd like a letter of support of this, and I've got a copy of it for you, and this is to extend the disparity grant for more years. So I think we all want to extend that. Right now, 11 counties get that, and it's to extend that. So that's a good one.
What was that bill number?
737. So we have 737, 1485, and 1496. 1485 and 1496, their hearing is next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I will be down testifying for that, of course, with our delegation, and I would hope that any and every available EMS emergency service provider can come down and help support this bill. We greatly need it to pass. So those are the first three things. This weekend was a busy weekend. Saturday evening was the YMCA Gala, very well attended at the Williamsport Fire Hall. Excellent, fun event that supports their camps, summer programs, and youth sports. Also, Saturday morning at Boonesboro High School was the Destination Imaginations competition for Western Maryland, another event to have elementary, middle, and high school kids out here in Washington County. Great event. Since I wasn't here the prior meeting 2 weeks ago, there was two things that I wanted to comment on. First was with the school board in relation to the capital improvement projects. Now, this is personally myself speaking. I would like to see we could increase the capital improvement funding to the school board. But saying that is during a meeting a couple months ago when I said the same thing, that I think we could increase this amount if the school system helped with that funding, that I'd be willing to increase the funding. And we got a lot of nods from the Board of Education from that, saying, okay, we could look at that. I do not think in our current budget or future budgets that we could continue at this rate by ourselves.
What do you mean, a match? Is that what you're talking?
Some type of match, yes, with the school construction. I think we can find some money there. Also, one thing is I do have a concern. I've said this multiple times with the public safety training center. I want to make sure that I 100% support building it and completing it, but I want to make sure that we've got the funding in place to run it and operate it. Because if we look out, that's between $450,000 and $500,000 a year to run and operate that. I want to make sure that we've got our fire and EMS, the personnel, staffing, and everything corrected before we increase the spending by $500,000 for the training facility. I want to make sure that's in there. I 100% support the completion of it, but we need to make sure we look at that.
Cord, could I comment on that?
Of course.
If you don't mind. Also on the training center, the new training center, I think in the budget there's and I can't remember the amount, is it $2 million for renovations to the current 911 center, or?
Yeah, I think it's about 1.8 million, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, maybe we could look at something to, maybe as a cost savings, and somehow get the 911 center included in the public safety facility. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but I
I'm
think
not
it would.
sure either. I can talk with the engineer.
Okay, to me that would be worth looking into.
And something that I think the commission should look at, And I know Mako, they've said this multiple different times, and I know my budget personally, with my company, I look at this and forecasting. I think we need to do more than just approve a one-year budget. I think we approve our one-year budget as is, and I think we should also be approving a five-year budget, much more higher level budget, but looking out at the 5 years, because what I don't want to see is we approve a budget, and then because of the increases that we know are going to happen, we're not looking at 5 years down the road because we could fall off a cliff. So I think that's something we should take into consideration. It's a good use of planning.
Sarah, don't we already, do we forecast a 5-year right now?
We do have a 5-year projection, yes. I think maybe the
We
difference,
don't vote on that projection, it's just a projection.
that's correct. Currently, the board votes on, yes, the current year, and the remaining 4 years are just that, a projection. I think what Commissioner Schmidt is asking is that that be presented, that 5-year plan. Maybe it hasn't always been presented in the past with the budget.
It would be nice, I agree, it would be nice to see a projection of, so we don't, if it's possibly overspend or.
Sure.
And I also think it'd be good for the outside agencies to see if we're, maybe we can't give you money this year, but we're looking at our budget next year to give you an increase.
I
So
agree.
I think it helps out with everybody.
Court, anything else?
That's it. Apologize for the long time.
Reference to the training center, some of that operation budget will be salaries that are transferred in. So to say it's 500,000 new, probably is not completely accurate, so we'd have to look at the details. Second, I think discussions I've had, the 911 centers about 10 years maybe moving down there, so I don't know if we could stop or slow that gap down, and maybe that's a good suggestion of cost savings, maybe, we'll work on that. And
Just thinking, why spend $2 million on renovation?
it's going to be a year or two. We need thank you, Terry, for bringing that point. I too did attend the grand opening and reopening of the Stew. I guess 100+ people there. The energy for downtown was obvious for things that are happening down there. So that was a nice event to attend. And I want to personally thank Commissioner Kiefer for his radiothon appearance, so for helping with hospice and Dewey House. I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years, and I think they said I beat Wayne by over $100,000 from no, jokingly.
I heard my team brought in more, but
Well, latest update on the app.
Yeah, but the good news is they doubled what they did last year.
And thank you for that. We probably with your help and others that helped exceed their goal. And if anyone's ever had the chance to use hospice, I feel sympathy for you, but someday, sooner or later, hospice affects our family. So for all of us to help support that radiothon, thank you. And that concludes my report. Next, I'd like to go into reports from county staff. If there's any reports from county staff, please come forward. State your name and the matter, please.
Good morning.
Good
Susan
morning.
Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. Here this morning just to briefly update the board on 2 recent grant awards approved through the Office of Grant Management. The first is a hotel rental tax request of up to $5,000 for the Antietam Velo Club, has been awarded for the costs associated with the Washington County Sheriff Office overtime for the Tour of Washington County bike race that is scheduled for June 19th through 21st. This is an annual event that has been historically funded through this program, and it does meet the goals of the hotel rental tax program. The second award is for a general fund contingency grant. $1,992 has been awarded to the Sharpsburg Volunteer Fire Company to assist with the cost of purchasing a replacement to a damaged fire hose. The contingency fund grants are intended to assist organizations with unplanned or unbudgeted expenses. This expense was, I think, in the budget, but it came in at a higher expense than they had budgeted, so they requested this assistance. If there are any questions or comments, no vote is needed. This is just for awareness.
Commissioners, any questions for Susan? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other staff reports?
I've,
You're Christie.
Commissioners, just to clarify on some of the comments that the board had made regarding letters of request or in support of or in opposition to certain bills. I have a number of requests that have been received, and for the record, I think we ought to have motions supporting the letters that the court asked for, specifically HB 1485, HB 1496. And if,
That's right. Can I make the motion to support HB 1496 and 1485?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And then can I make the motion to support HB 737?
Second.
I have first and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
thank you. Delegate Quarterman has asked for a letter of support for HB 1275, the Suzanne Jones Act. This is an act that he had introduced, a bill that he had introduced before regarding correctional services inmate release, indicating that the Division of Correction is to transport an inmate from the correctional facility at the time of the release to the jurisdiction that is listed on an identification card or driver's license, or that was recorded by the correctional facility at the time the inmate entered the correctional facility or at the last known residence before incarceration. I believe he introduced this last year, and we sent a letter of support.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second, any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
What was that bill number?
1275.
Yes. There's also been a request from Delegate Quarterman to support HB 1367. It is a bill that would fund a study to study the feasibility of expansion of the MARC rail system to Western Maryland. He is asking for a letter of support for that bill as well.
Is there a motion to support 1367? Is
Make the motion to support.
there a second? Is there a second to support 1360?
I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I don't feel like I know enough information about that particular bill.
Okay, is there, okay, thank
I
you.
read the newspaper article.
Is there a second? Let me continue with the second. Is there a second? Would?
I'll summarize what the bill summary is. Requiring the Department of Transportation to conduct a study on extending MARC rail service to Western Maryland. Requiring the department to study and make recommendations regarding certain matters. Requiring the department to report its findings and recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly, and providing for termination of the act. So,
Get a copy of that to look over.
sure.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable making this.
How is timing on this? Can we discuss it, vote next week?
That should be fine. I'm not sure when.
I think that hearing is the following Wednesday, or Wednesday or Thursday, I think. So
That's okay.
we could, and just have to get it down there.
Right, I'll circulate it. And request for letter of support, HB 893, regarding the Adult Public Guardianship Review Board in Washington County. This was one of the county's identified legislative initiatives.
Motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Request for a letter of support, HB 1518, the opioid exposed newborns and parents addicted to opioids mobile application pilot program. This would authorize the Department or the Social Services Administration to establish a pilot program in Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett counties to communicate with opioid addicted parents through a mobile phone application to verify the parents' abilities to care for their at-risk children.
Motion? Discussion first?
I think we may want to reach out to our local social services board about that. I'm not sure.
I have not seen that bill.
I think that was discussed last year.
We'll wait.
Two more items. Request that the commissioners provide a letter regarding a hydrological survey supporting the environmental health group that was presented. It has been prepared and is ready to be sent. That was the interagency environmental health work group that is asking for certain funding to support the water study.
You know, I'd support that, but you said certain, what's the financial impact, the fiscal impact of that to us?
No impact to us. They're asking that the Department of the Environment find money.
Oh, yeah, I motion to approve.
Second?
Yeah.
I have a first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Final matter is a request from the town of Sharpsburg that the commissioners support their application to the Maryland Historical Trust for funds to help with the restoration of the Antietam Station roof. It is in disrepair and they need some funding to address that.
Okay, is there first motion for that?
Motion approved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, or any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Downey, anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Hart?
I have several boards that need vote for appointments. I have the Board of Social Services requesting to appoint Cynthia Brown to serve an unfulfilled term through June 30th of 2020. This is not a paid board.
Commissioners,
Motion to approve Cynthia Brown's.
is there a second? Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Next?
Antietam Battlefield Committee, looking to appoint Landon Grove to serve an unfulfilled term through February 28th of 2021, and for Howard Ford to serve a first three-year term from March 1st, 2020 through February 28th, 2023. This is not a paid board.
Commissioners, motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Additionally, we have the Veterans Advisory Committee. This is a new board, and what we are seeking to do is appoint 4 members at this point, allow those 4 members to meet, and then they can decide on the appointment of the additional 5 members, and/or to change the bylaws, whichever they see fit. We are looking to appoint Starlene Hamilton, Gregory Edens, Teresa Spurrill, and David Swain, each to serve from March 1st, 2020 through February 28th, 2023. There'll be 3 terms each. This is not a paid board, and this will leave additional 5 vacant positions on that committee for them to decide upon.
And at that first meeting, will all the people who've inquired be invited?
Everybody will be
And it'll be
invited,
open to
yes.
the public as
Correct.
well?
And
And the commissioners. Or a motion to support?
Motion to approve.
Randy got it.
Okay, second, and a second. Any further discussion?
Is there going to be a spot on that board for a commissioner?
Yeah, I have volunteered to do that and work with Teresa to organize this. But the board, the meeting is open to everybody. As all committee meetings, commissioners are always welcome to attend.
And I'd also add, if someone doesn't end up getting appointed, I mean, I have a special interest in the veterans. I would say committee of that size will turn over. So I'd stay involved if you aren't appointed by the process. And I think, we change people and appoint people all the time. So I think, don't feel like you weren't, whatever this committee chooses, that you weren't worthy of it. Just hang in there and participate, and I assure you, you'll get an opportunity to be on that board. Is that accurate? Does that sound pretty accurate? Yeah.
All right,
citizens are welcome to attend whether they're appointed or not.
All right, we have first and a second, a motion to approve.
Didn't we just do that?
You had discussion.
Yep.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, you first, you second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Krista, what next?
That would be all I have.
Next on the agenda, citizens,
Don't we need to approve a new position?
Yes.
Mr. Downey, you're up.
Commissioners, there's a request for the creation of a position as to the assistant to the county clerk. And if that is the commissioner's desire, there'd need to be a motion to authorize the position and to advertise the vacancy.
Make the motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0. Any other staff reports? Hearing none, let's go to citizens' participation. We'll start with the front row. Please come forward and state your name and your matter. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Greg Snook. I'm here today as Chair of Meritus Medical Center. This time last year, we started on a process to fill the president's position out there. It was a 9-month process, and we were very successful. Last November, we hired Dr. Malik Joshi, who is with me here. I know some of you have met him informally at some other social events, but I thought it'd be important today to introduce him to the entire county, both the senior staff and the commissioners. Malik has hit the ground running. He came from a hospital in Anne Arundel County and is very familiar with the Maryland model, and that is a big benefit to us here out at Meritus. So with that, I'd like to introduce Malik Joshi, and he's going to just talk about a few initiatives that are happening out at Meritus.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much, Greg. I just want to say, first of all, my wife and I are thrilled to be new residents of Washington County and how excited we are to be a part of the whole community in Meritus Health. As Greg has mentioned, just to give you a little bit of where we are today and some of the great initiatives we have coming in front of us. The hospital continues to stay busy. As you know, we see just under 70,000 people a year in the emergency room. That's over 200 visits a day to the emergency room. And in the wintertime, that gets to about almost 240 visits a day to the emergency room. As you know, we birth every 3 days a whole kindergarten class of kids, about almost 2,000 births a year. And we are full. The winter season always brings with flu and other things. So we're at full capacity of 230, but we have a phenomenal team taking care of patients every single day, whether in the medical center or at home or in the physician office. As you've seen some of our recent work, we have a new surgical robot, the Da Vinci system, which allows our surgeons to perform minimally invasive surgery, which is better for the patients, both clinically and for them to get home sooner as well. So we're very excited about that, and we do more cases every day using the Da Vinci. Opioids is, of course, a major issue for our country, our state, and our region. We've very much focused on that in terms of our part in this very multifactorial challenge, and that's to reduce prescribing of opioids. And just in the last 7 months, our physicians have reduced prescribing by about 30% of opioid prescriptions, to give you an idea of how much we're trying to really ensure that there's appropriate medications and prescriptions. And the last thing I'll reach out, and everyone will get an invitation, is on April 23rd, we're launching with all our community partners, including Healthy Washington County and others from Greater Hagerstown Committee, a bold health goal for 2030, which we are centering around losing 1 million pounds as the region and the community. So we're really focused on how we can all work together to make us a healthier and vibrant community, and it's all obviously connected towards education and income. So thank you for the opportunity, and really thrilled to be working with you and all your support to the county.
Thank you. Thank you. Citizens' participation. Anyone else in the front row, please come forward. State your name and the matter. Address, please.
Good morning, Roger Vincent, 16845 Longfellow Court. I have the copy of the proposed ordinance. And we have asked in the past 6 months, 6 months to make a decision. Wow. If I was in business, which I have been in business before, managing different companies, if I took 6 months to make a decision, I'd be out of business. Come on, guys, make a decision today, will you please? One way or the other. Here's the deal. 7.5% or 25% of the gross monthly charges. There's the problem, the gross monthly charges. What is the gross monthly charges? The mobile home park owner can read that two different ways. They can read it that it is the rent, and then they can read it as the rent and the tax. Which way are they going to read it? You need to write this so they can only read it one way, and that is the gross monthly charges has to be their rent, the rent they charge, and then the tax on top of it, okay? The tax has to be separate. We have to see what the tax is, because we have to have the ability to go and challenge the tax at some point if we need to, and we also need to be able to say, here on a piece of paper is a bill I received that shows the tax. If we don't have a bill that shows the tax, we can't prove we paid the tax. If you hide it inside the rent. So you got to separate it. This doesn't separate it. You got to change this. If you're going to tax us, change this. Now, why should you tax us in the first place? We own a mobile home. I pay a mortgage. It's like somebody else that buys a house pays a mortgage. I pay a mortgage. Okay? So a renter doesn't have a mortgage. He pays a tax. Part of the assessed valuation of that building goes into his rent. I pay at the same deal. I have the $274, which I think just increased because you guys increased the property tax to 0.03, whatever it is, so that everybody's property tax went up.
Property tax has not increased.
Huh?
Property tax has not increased. Income tax increased.
Okay, property tax.
Did not
So
increase.
the $274 that we pay that is in our yearly amount, okay, portioned out over 12 months, that is the same thing. We're paying a tax to you. We pay a tax. Now we got to pay a separate tax just because we live in a mobile home. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Why should we pay a tax because we chose to live in a mobile home? I have a pretty nice mobile home. But it's not a giant place. It's a double wide, which is, to me, is still smaller than the house I used to live in because we chose to downsize. And we chose to reduce the amount we pay. But you keep doing all these taxes and it just keeps coming back up. I am at the point now where we're paying over $1,000 a month with my mortgage and my rent. Okay, on fixed income of Social Security and my Navy retirement, I'm at the point. Bam. Now, do I go on public assistance? Why? Simply because you guys tax me? Come on. Get rid of the tax. Zero. Zero. There's no need for it. You don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Thank you for keeping in that time frame. Would someone else like to join? Name and address again.
Yes, Stephen McDonough, 16906 Pickwick Lane. First thing I want to do is correct Mr. Vincent here. He does not have a mortgage. You cannot get a mortgage on personal property. He has a loan on a residence that he lives in. Again, it is not a mortgage, it's a loan. Now, with information that started, that was given earlier, it's going to delay my statement that I'm prepared to read, okay? But you've discussed about House bills. I didn't hear anyone say anything about HB 1161, okay? That's the county's initiative to try to get our homes assessed, okay? Our homes are personal property. They should not be able to be assessed. We're not opposed, I've never heard any one of us say that we're opposed to being taxed. If you want to tax us, do it the right way. Go to the state to have all manufactured housing converted to real property. Okay? When you go in and you ask for a single county, such as Washington County, which is what's being done, to have the ability to assess our homes, is wrong. Our homes are rated as personal property. If you do want to take and change it, have it done at the state level and include everyone at the state. Okay? It's just like this automobile tax, automobile trailer camp tax that we're currently paying. It's also like the proposed mobile home park tax. It's nothing but an indirect tax to tax our personal properties. That's exactly what it is. If you want to tax us, do it right. Convert all manufactured housing in the entire state to real property. Do it at the state level, do it through the DMV, do it any way you want. But what you're doing now just confirms about how unfair and how discriminatory this tax is. Okay? You're trying to place a personal, well, you are placing a tax on our personal properties. Okay? So I don't want you to support HB 1161. I don't want you to support SB 292, which are both the same things. Okay? It's just totally unfair. Now, for my written statement for most of that is actually from the residents of Lakeside Village, but it does impact 937 families in Washington County. Okay? With your vote later today, you'll not only be determining the amount of tax that we will be subject to, if any, you'll also be determining if you consider 937 families in Washington counties as transients or campers rather than Washington County residents, as described in the current automobile trailer camp tax. Okay, while the original resolution may have been needed because of transients and campers in 1963, this is no longer the case. Though we don't live in opulent communities as described by Mr. Bright, we do live in long-term, organized, well-established communities, many of which have been in place since the 50s, 60s, and 70s of the last century. We are rent-paying tenants in the county, just as any other family renting an apartment or home in the county. Many of us have been born here, have gone to school here, work here, play here, and to confirm Mr. Wagner's father's feelings, we also pay taxes and we die here. The same as the apartment and home tenants do. However, they are not subject to the additional 15% tax. We provided with information about the taxes we pay in relationship to other county tenants. We contribute double the tax money than the tenants of the nicest apartment complexes and 5 times as much as the apartment complexes that are actually comparable to our communities. With the new proposed tax ordinance, we will be paying approximately the same amount of tax as the nicer apartment complexes, while paying more than double of the tax for the truly comparable complexes. The original resolution or the pending ordinance are not taxes on mobile homes. These are space taxes designed to apply an indirect tax on our personal property and are wrong on many levels, including us being double taxed. This double taxation was confirmed by ex-Attorney General of the state of Maryland, Mr. Doug Gansler, when he gave his speech during the hearing. The taxes are unfair because it's a tax on personal property, biased because of the type of the housing that we choose to live in, and discriminatory because no other rent-paying tenants of Washington County are subjected to this law. If you repeal the automobile trailer camp tax and enact the mobile home park tax, it will still be the same tax, simply being updated with newer language and the tax being set at a lesser amount. It will still be unfair, biased, and discriminatory. In addition, it will also become a predatory tax, since you choose to continue this tax after it's been exposed for what it is, an indirect tax on what the state of Maryland considers our non-taxable personal property. If you want to do away with the fact that it's unfair, or take away our ability to call it unfair or discriminatory, Okay, right now we pay $1,074 in total taxes yearly. If it gets reduced, that means we pay $574 a year in gross taxes. Are you prepared to go to all the other rent-paying tenants in the county that are not paying $1,074 or $574 in the future? Are you prepared to tell them that they're not paying enough taxes also and have their rent increase so that they are contributing the same amount of tax? If you choose to do anything less than repeal the current automobile trailer camp tax and reject the proposed mobile home park tax, you'll still be considering these 937 families in Washington counties as transients and campers rather than some rent-paying citizens of Washington County. We are not transients nor campers. Please recognize us as being citizens, rent-paying citizens of Washington County, and repeal the automobile trailer camp tax and reject the proposed mobile home park tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and I'm not going to cut you off right at 3 minutes. We're going to be very lenient, but for the others remaining to speak. So please introduce yourself and address. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Lumen. I live at 16926 Alcott Road, Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm also in Lakeside Park. I'm coming here based upon for this unjust tax. I know you've heard a lot of arguments, but one of the comments that were made at the end of the meeting last month stated that, well, this tax goes towards emergency services, and we don't want to cut any of that. How would we feel if we cut this tax and reduce this stuff? There are 151,000 citizens in Washington County. 151,000. If every single person paid $1 per month towards a 9/11 tax, you'd have triple the amount of money that you're getting from 739 people or 937 families. This, when I was looking at this, I came across, how you're saying we're not transients and stuff. I came across a picture in Valley Mall that's hanging in the back hallway. It is a picture of overview of what Valley Mall used to look like. It's got to be earlier than 2000 because the land where my house is currently sitting isn't even developed. But what is developed is a whole park of houses that these houses go all the way back. Some of them are 50 years old, and they're still paying $274 a year on property taxes on a house that's 40 years old. That's not, you don't even pay that much on a tax on a fixed ground house for that much. And then you add on this mobile home tax, month after month after month. For 50 years, this has gone on. For 50 years, these people have paid for their houses 5-10 times over, just over this camp tax alone. These are now people that are senior citizens. These are people that don't have the money. And again, if I could live in a regular house, I would, but I can't afford to. However, it shouldn't, but I actually own my home. So I'm finishing now. I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to give this as a thought to you guys, that a lot of these people have lived here generations in this mobile home. They're members of Washington County. I pay my taxes just as much as every other person in this county. And I think it's unfair that this burden is put upon us twice. And yes, I appreciate our emergency services and everything else, but it shouldn't be just based on our small mobile home communities to provide these services. The whole county could, and it wouldn't even cost them more than a pack of gum a month, and you'd get triple the amount of money. Thank you.
Mr. McDonough, I don't mind that you say something, but we normally don't give everybody a second chance, so please be brief, okay?
I
don't want to look like I'm censoring you or anything.
It was either me say it or have somebody else cede their time so I could say it.
Whatever, just so you know that.
It's going to be pretty brief.
Thank you.
Okay, it's something I forgot to mention. It's actually two short things. The first thing is, it's been 6 months. During those 6 months, you guys have collected $300,000 or possibly over $300,000 from 937 families on non-taxable homes. Okay? The second, just a quick second one. Oh, and the second one is, again, I challenge you to tell me or anyone else in a mobile home that we have access to more services or programs than any other rent-paying tenant in Washington County. I don't think you can do it. In fact, I know you can't do it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' participation continues. Anyone else in the front row? Dr. Michaels, please introduce yourself and the matter. Thank you.
Morning, President Klein and Commissioners.
Morning.
For the record, my name is Boyd Michael, Superintendent of Washington County Public Schools, 10435 Downsville Pike, Hagerstown, Maryland. I brought to your attention several challenges we are facing in our community schools, some of which you have heard before. Growing capital needs, our community changing demographics, and the national teacher shortage, just to name a few. This morning, I'd like to share with you an evolving challenge, one that is playing out in our schools, not only here in Washington County, but across the nation, and one that we can be more effectively addressed here in Washington County with your support. Our schools are more and more often serving students with unexpected, challenging behaviors. Surprisingly enough, this is a growing issue in our elementary schools with our youngest children. Most of us as adults can probably relate to having one student in our childhood classrooms who may have disrupted or created disturbances in class. Maybe they were fidgety or spoke out of turn, or they couldn't quite sit still during group work. Distracting behaviors in today's classrooms are far more unsettling. There are more students with significant social, emotional, and behavior needs who are having outbursts and showing aggression, not only towards their fellow classmates, but also to staff members. They simply don't have control over their emotions and actions. These students need additional support in order to be successful in the classroom. Some of our students have needs that go beyond what traditional school supports have ever served. Administrators, counselors, social workers, nurses, teachers are equipped and trained with instructional needs, how to meet their instructional needs. These social, emotional, and behavioral challenges are new and different and having an impact on the learning of all students in the classroom, not just the student with behavioral challenges. The encouraging news is we are currently seeing success in implementing strategies to support these students. Specially trained professionals, teachers, paraprofessionals, counselors, social workers, and behavior specialists work together to diagnose, support positive social and emotional development for the individual students and their families. With the appropriate resources, many of the students are able to develop self-management skills and successfully participate in learning with their peers. With your help, we can do more to support all of our students across the county. The proposed draft operating budget for FY21 for Washington County Public Schools includes a $1.7 million investment that provides specialized, trained staff and needed professional development to help our students and our schools assist these students that are exhibiting this unwanted behavior. Minimizing disruptions to the learning environment benefits every child. It benefits every child. It's time to put our students first, regardless of any child's level of need. They are our community's children. They are, in fact, your children to address their needs as county commissioners. With your support, we can help each child grow academically, socially, and behaviorally to ensure a successful future for them and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michaels. Is there anyone else in the front row who'd like to come forward? Name and address, please.
Good morning. I'm Emily Keller, 851 Summit Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Lieutenant Josh McCauley, 500 Western Maryland Parkway.
So good morning. Thanks for giving us a moment of your time. I am here today on behalf of Washington Goes Purple and also the Washington County Senior Opioid Policy Group. I watched with great interest and frustration 2 Tuesdays ago when you guys were presented information about the harm reduction program here locally by Delegate Neil Parrott. I've been involved in the planning of these programs, sitting on the senior policy group. This is something that's been implemented in Washington County and working successfully for some time now. I just wanted to, for the record, I know you guys have gotten some information in your email since then, but to correct some of the misinformation that was provided. Delegate Parrott, he had stated that there were 3 programs operating in Maryland. This unfortunately is false. There are actually 7 programs operating and 4 counties that are in the development phase. He stated that Baltimore has operated since 1994 and has the highest rate of bloodborne diseases in the US. That again is not true. They've actually been on a 10-year decline of HIV. They do have a high rate of STDs, but that's not associated with this program. Now, harm reduction is not new. NIH has studied this for some time. The CDC has studied this for some time. Johns Hopkins University has studied it. So it's not like this is a new program we're just looking at and saying, hey, we hope this works. We know it works. Statistics show that anyone who engages in a syringe service program even once is 4 to 5 times more likely to access treatment and 3.5 times more likely to cease injection. That's on the CDC's evidence-based strategy for preventing opioid overdose. Here locally, we have served 455 participants, 203 of which have been referred to treatment. That's almost 50% of the recipients of our harm reduction program have been referred to treatment. That's a huge number. And of that 455 participants, almost all of them have been Narcan trained. Having Narcan in our community is a good thing. You know, I dream of a day where we don't need to have it, but unfortunately we do. It cuts down on calls for service, cuts down on other issues that we have. The harm reduction program here locally is doing outreach. They've had over 100 educational sessions on harm reduction, and they have spoke at the National Conference of Addictive Disorders. They've held weekly group meetings for parents and concerned others who have loved ones that are suffering from substance use and mental health. So I know this is not a feel-good subject. I know it's not. You know, we're talking about needles. It makes me uncomfortable. It probably makes most people uncomfortable. But the health of our community is important. And when you have a program that is shown to lower HIV rates, to lower hepatitis rates, and to help keep people alive, I think us as humans, we should be focused on keeping people alive and keeping people healthy until they're ready to get help. And that's what harm reduction does. This is not politics. This is not, hey, I don't like this, so let's not do this here. You have doctors, you have universities, you have the CDC saying that this program is beneficial. We don't have to agree on it, but we do need to do what's right for the health of our community. So respectfully, I ask that you guys consider not writing a letter of opposition of this program, instead going, I know Earl Stoner is going to come present to you guys some facts as well, and I just really respectfully ask you undo your decision to not support this program because it is needed in our community.
Again, my name's Lieutenant Josh McCauley. I've worked for the Washington County Sheriff's Office now for over 15 years. In my time there, I've worked patrol. I've been a canine handler of a narcotics detection canine. I've done criminal and drug interdiction. I've been a detective, and most recently, I'm a patrol supervisor, so I manage a shift of deputies on the road. My auxiliary responsibilities include managing our agency's law enforcement assisted diversion program, managing our mental health response and our crisis intervention team, and managing our juvenile diversion programs. It's no secret that opiates are a major problem in our community. I'm here this morning on behalf of the Washington County Sheriff's Office to represent Sheriff Mullendore in stating that the Sheriff's Office fully supports the harm reduction and syringe services program here in Washington County. You've heard it said, Emily just said it, this program makes it 5 times more likely that a substance user will get treatment. I personally don't know of any program, law enforcement or otherwise, that can boast those types of statistics. We face this crisis on a daily basis at the Sheriff's Office. We respond to overdoses, we see the destruction that this drug causes, and we've made far too many death notifications as a result of this crisis. I've personally administered naloxone. I've given CPR to somebody after giving that naloxone and had their family standing just feet away, watching every move that I made to determine if their family member is going to live or die. We support syringe services programs mainly because we're tired of seeing vulnerable members of our community sick and dying. And any program that makes it more likely that that person will get treatment should not be just tossed to the side. Since its implementation, syringe services and the entire harm reduction program at the Washington County Health Department have become the cornerstone of a robust, multidisciplinary response to the opioid epidemic that we have in this county. Washington County has actually become an example to the rest of the state on how to get a team together to fight this crisis. Removing such an important piece of that response would take away a valuable resource for us at a time when we need additional resources more than ever. I'm sure you guys have heard all of the important statistics, and you're probably going to hear more, so I won't go into all of them. But one statistic that doesn't get mentioned as often is that basically it makes first responders more safe. A syringe services program makes first responders more safe. A study in Connecticut found that needle sticks among first responders were reduced by approximately 66% after the implementation of a syringe services program in that community. That's huge. Needle sticks are something that we deal with. It's a time of uncertainty for the deputy that gets stuck. There's medications, there's doctor's visits. It's a terrible thing to have to go through that usually lasts for months. And again, a program that makes our first responders safer should not be tossed away. The bottom line is that syringe services programs work. They make our communities safer, they keep our citizens alive, they prevent disease, they encourage treatment, and they protect first responders. So I'll just say one more time, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Mullendore, we support the syringe services program in Washington County, and we ask that, that you support it as well.
Thank you. Citizens' participation continues. Please come forward, state your name and the matter. And I must remind everybody, please stay to 3 minutes. We're way behind our schedule. Not that I want to censor you, but try to be concise. Yes. And I thank you for that.
Hello, my name is Robert Zellner. I'm the Director of Client Services at Awakenings Recovery Center in downtown Hagerstown. But formerly, I was the peer support supervisor for both our syringe services program and our law enforcement assisted diversion program. With my time there, I was working with a great team. First responders, that includes EMS, fire, and police officers. When implementing SSPs and our LEAD program, it's really interesting to see the beautiful relationship between people with lived experiences and providers be able to help our citizens of Washington County. I have copies of our third quarter OOC data results for the first 9 months of 2019, and they're pretty significant. 91% of overdoses in Maryland are related strictly to fentanyl. What Washington County does do is they don't give drug use kits as previously echoed. It's sterile injection equipment to help people not transmit diseases and recreationally use. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. Safer, not safely, safer. It protects our citizens. It protects themselves. They become productive members of society. They get out of the darkness because people and providers are willing to give services to people who are just struggling in that matter. I have actually had the privilege of working with 16 participants at Awakenings from when I was the supervisor at the SSP program. I only know that number just because I know those people. The SSP program is autonomous, so there may be other people that came through our doors, but I'm just not aware of that because I'm not at liberty to ask if you were involved in the SSP harm reduction program. I'll leave this here. There's copies for everybody. And then on top of that, I have a summary of information for the SSP program out of the CDC, which echoing what Emily Keller and Lieutenant McCauley had said. I have copies of those here also. And then I also have 2 letters of opposition to Neil Parrott's push in Annapolis from 2 concerned citizens, and they just emailed them to me, and I made copies of them too. So as a concerned citizen in Hagerstown, Maryland, and Washington County, I hope our county commissioners will look at this data and make their own decision. because these stats do not lie. You can look at it however you want to look at it, read it a couple times, read it backwards. The fact that we're utilizing an evidence-based practice in Washington County in our harm reduction and SSP program, backed by doctors and PhD holding scholars, kind of speaks to the validity of this program and this practice. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kathy Dorman. I am currently a drug and alcohol counselor in training, and I'm also a peer advocate here in the community. I just came in today to show that harm reduction works. I am a person in recovery, and I started out with the harm reduction help, and so I received that for many years. And knowing there was an option and people that opened their arms to care about me and talk to me, even regardless where I was at, being hopeless and suffering from drugs, there was an opportunity for me. And it did take a while for me to get there, but eventually when that door opened, I was able to get the help that I need for now that I'm able to give back. And I can't tell you how many people who are in the harm reduction program do I help on a daily basis get them resources as they need them. So I'm just asking you to just not give up on the people who were once in my shoes, who can still be something later in the future. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
Again, back to citizens' participation. Anyone in the other rows, please come forward. State your name and matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Tom Grosh, a lifelong resident of Clear Spring. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I came here with 2 items on the agenda, but after listening to some talk this morning on another issue regarding the county addresses, I have 3 now. The first issue is our Second Amendment rights. I'm a proud, legal, law-abiding gun owner and a member of many pro-gun organizations. Today and every day in Annapolis, our Second Amendment rights are under attack. All the new laws do is punish legal, law-abiding gun owners and business owners. I am here today while my Second Amendment right advocates, counterparts, are in Annapolis fighting to save our rights there. Today, we are asking the Board of County Commissioners to lead with the help of our local delegation to request the Washington County, Maryland State's Attorney's Office, the local state's attorneys, and the local prosecuting attorneys to stop plea bargaining, dropping gun charges here in Washington County, Maryland. It is by the people, for the people, that we request these actions. This is our county together. We as citizens request that the laws that are already on the books be enforced to the fullest extent of the law. Just yesterday in the Washington County Herald Mail, there was another person charged as being a felon in possession of a gun in Washington County. Very few people were found guilty of gun charges here in Washington County and the state of Maryland because the gun charges are always part of a plea agreement to the most serious charges, gun charges, and being a convicted felon. We need Washington County State's Attorney's Office to stop negotiating and stop dropping any gun charges. Make Washington County a place where you do not want to commit a gun crime because our full enforcement of the laws and prison system. Our local judges need to help enforce the laws with stronger sentences. It's only a matter of time before one of the non-prosecuted gun crimes come back and attacks and kills our law enforcement or our citizens. The dropping and the pleas of gun charges also affects the FBI crime statistics, which does not then show true gun violence here in Washington County, Maryland, and the state of Maryland because the charges were dropped or non-prosecuted. Thank you for that. The second issue I come to talk to you today is the hotel motel tax in chief. I ask that you really give this some serious consideration and vetting, that the public should have a say in this, and we need to really look at this before we sign off. I'll make this part short. Is there any issues with the way the hotel tax and money is being administered now? So the third issue in regards to the address changes, one of the things I think that we need to really seriously consider, and this is real world for me just 2 weeks ago, is that when you change a business's address, it affects their listing on Google listings. There is so-called 70 major online directories that have your information. If this information is not correct on all 70 of them directories, there's up to 100, depends where you search and all that. You end up getting, they say you get flagged by Google because your information is not correct. It is very difficult to get onto these 70 directories or 100 directories and correct this information because some of them won't allow you to do it. And I can forward to Commissioner President Klein, the setup fee for me 2 weeks ago was $99 for them to correct the 70 discrepancies on these sites, and $75 a month annual with a yearly contract. That is the only way they'll do it. So when you change these addresses for the 911 system, it's going to affect some businesses and it's going to have some repercussions because Google's not going to be able to look at that. And I don't know who submits the addresses changes to Google that they accept them because I don't know if you've ever dealt with Google. It is very, very hard to get them to agree to anything because they think everything's fraud if it's not coming from a very high body of something. Thank you for your time, and again, thank you for allowing me to participate in citizens' participation.
Thank you, sir. Citizen participation continues. Please come forward, state your name, address, and your matter.
Good morning. My name's Kelly Fitzgerald. I live over at 550 Highland Way by City Park. I'm here with everybody else here, Emily Keller and Rob and everybody else, for in response to Neil Parrott's presentation the other week. So I'm actually here on behalf of my son. He was 2 years old last July and was in City Park and picked up a needle, stuck himself in his lip. And I got that call from my fiance while I was on a work trip, and it was easily the most terrifying day of my life. We were waiting on the phone. We were terrified there may have been fentanyl on the needle. We waited for first responders who came very quickly, and they were wonderful. And we waited even longer to find out blood test results from the hospital, and luckily everything was negative. For me, this is to the credit of the needle exchange program. We don't know that, to me, it very well could have been because of the needle exchange program that my son was actually safe that day. Neil Parrott came here the other week trying to use his story to further his agenda. And let it be stated, he did not contact us ahead of time, which I personally find incredibly unprofessional. As a parent to another parent, you just don't do that. And I also think it just shows his lack of research. The opioid crisis is very real for my family. It's very real for me personally, and I think it's very real for the entire city of Hagerstown. And we can't waste time going back to measures that didn't work. Harm reduction works. We know it works. Emily Keller said it. Everybody else said it. We know it works. So we need to keep going down this path. We need to keep trying things that are going to progress us towards a better solution. We need data-driven legislation informed by public health officials, social workers, and most importantly, we need answers from addicts because they're the people that we're serving, not politicians who are really just here for their congressional campaigns. I see my son's situation as one that could have benefited from harm reduction expansion. Had there been needle drop boxes in the park, he may not have even had a needle to pick up to begin with. Neil Parrott may find it easy to disregard the life and safety of addicts, but I don't. We need to stop seeing addiction as a character flaw. It's not. And we need to see it as a disease and an epidemic and start treating it that way. Thank you.
My name is
Brandon Blishy. I'm at 550 Highland Way. We live right behind the park, and as my fiance said, our son was the victim of that needle stick that Neil Parrott described in his story as he tried to gain support for his proposed legislation. Frankly, I think that his methodology of trying to get the commissioners on board is embarrassing. He hijacked any logical thought by using an emotional appeal rather than evidence-based or fact-driven policy making. Harm reduction is something that's important to our community, and it's something that is an internationally recognized method of curbing disease and eventually helping people get off of whatever substance they may be on. He is trying to dismantle a system that is already in place and that should be expanded in our opinion. In fact, we have, my fiance and I have co-founded a coalition, the Hagerstown Harm Reduction Coalition, with the support of members both in the city and the county who are interested in a citizens-based approach that circumvents the bureaucratic nature of the government, the health department, et cetera, to proliferate health reduction or harm reduction methodologies. And you'll be hearing more from us in the coming, it's in its infancy. We have a couple dozen interested parties, but you'll be hearing from us in the coming months and years about some of the ideas that we would like to see funded by the county and the city, by the state, and implemented particularly in public places, such as secure needle collection bins that can be collected, counted, and disposed of by authorities, so that we have a better understanding of how many people are using these bins, how often they're being used, how many needles are in the community. Frankly, asking police officers and deputies to collect individual needles is a waste of resources. And it happened to me just the other day. I found a needle in City Park near the storm drain overflow, just about 300 feet from Virginia Avenue Circle. And I had to call the Hagerstown City Police Department to remove it. Now, that took 25 minutes for them to arrive, another 5 minutes for them to find it. That's a half an hour of a police officer's time wasted during the day. The needle drop boxes, the sharp containers, would eliminate this waste of public resources and consolidate it to one motion of collecting the needles, counting them, and disposing of them by whoever it be, the police department or the city or the county health department. And we want to expand the needle program. I think Neil Parrott said something about these addicts are coming and collecting 30 needles at a time. Can you believe that? At least that's what he told me over the phone in our half-hour conversation. And I said, yes, I can believe that. Do you know how often an addict typically shoots up during the day? Does anybody know? So 30 needles is a very small amount for maybe a week, maybe 8 or 9 days. The typical addict shoots up between 6 and 12 times a day. So 30 needles is really not that much. And in fact, there shouldn't be any limitations whatsoever on the amount of needles handed out, because these are not babies, they're not children, they're adults. And they should be treated as such. They should be treated with respect and the dignity that they deserve. And we would like to see the further distribution of naloxone and naloxone-related products throughout the community, because every time that those things are withheld from the community, you end up risking lives. And I hope to speak with you further in the coming months and years. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being considerate of time. Thank you. Citizen participation continues. Is there anyone else who want to come forward? Okay, please state your names, address, and the subject. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Raj Patel, 13726 Oliver Drive, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740. I'm here because of the bill Paul is introducing, 1598. So I don't have a speech for you guys. I'm not Winston Churchill, so I can hear a pin drop in this thing. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit funny as well. I'm going to be Morton Downey Jr., Jerry Springer, President Trump, all of those rolled up, and Arnold Schwarzenegger for a Terminator, because this bill needs to be terminated from a hotel tax point of view. Okay, we want to nip it in the bud and also pull the root ball out and pour Roundup on it. So nothing like this comes to rise again. You guys have to understand, I try to use an analogy to get my point across. Coronavirus, right? Mainland China. It has nothing to do with us. Yet the ramification yesterday was $1.7 trillion was wiped out. And if you guys are stock collector doing stocks, today it's another 200 points, right? So this particular bill, Bill 1598, is a coronavirus for Washington County. Put that in the papers, please. It's a coronavirus for Washington County, okay? $8.50. People are money conscious nowadays, okay? Internet. The Canadians, if you do the math, it's $1 versus 0.75. So they're gonna pay actually $11.33 Canadian dollars plus the 6% state tax, right? You're just gonna be a blip on a radar. They're gonna come and pass you right by. The new millennium people, right? They're not gonna spend the money out at Washington County. I have several hotels in Washington County. I invested my life in Washington County. We don't need this new tax. That particular tax is gonna impact everybody. There's liquor board people over here, there's gas station owners, all those people will come. Those people who stay at our hotel, those are guests. They're guests of Washington County as well. They do restaurants, sit-down restaurants, not Taco Bell and Burger King and McDonald's, okay? They do fine winings as well. You know, Nick's Airport Inn, sit-down restaurant, you know, that's where they go. And as well, gas stations, you know, that's the ramification of a coronavirus over here. $1.7 trillion yesterday, you're gonna have the same effect over here. So I don't wanna nip it in the bud. I wanna rip the root ball out and pour Roundup on it. You guys have to understand that one of the things that city tried to pass, you know, several months ago was a tax for inspecting, you know, hotel rooms. You know, they quickly realized that, you know, hey, if the city passes this thing, all these people will go into the county. Now the county wants this thing, where do you think all those people are gonna go? You only have 13 miles from that border to that border. You gotta catch all the fish you can. If you don't, you're gonna lose a lot of money, and every industry will get impacted, okay? So all this stuff that's gonna go, gas stations, restaurants, liquors, okay, hotels, you think you're gonna make money? No, you're not gonna make money. Paul was probably given a, you know, it's like, hey, how much money you need for the project? Oh, $1 million? All right, so let's divide $1 million times the number of rooms nights that we have. Okay, $850, here it is. You know, he didn't do his homework. It was a Friday evening and he just turned in that homework and the principal, he's getting called to the principal's office now. You know, those are one of the things is, if you guys with this thing, put $8.50 on that counter, I'm gonna come for collections.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else with name and address, please?
My name is Bakul Patel. I'm with Red Roof Inns in Williamsport at 310 East Potomac Street. Again, just to add to that, that tax increase is being proposed. It's unsustainably high. I mean, for example, like somebody's paying $60 a night right now. They're paying $3 at current 6%. They would be paying $8.50 as well. If my math is correct, they'd be paying, that'd be like 160% increase on current base. I mean, that's never heard anywhere, 160%. I'd like to have my business increase by 16%, let alone 160%. Just like as he said, you know, we are going to be losing out those business to neighboring counties, and in our case, again, as he said, more to our neighboring states. Are we prepared for that? I mean, again, you know, just to add to, we keep forgetting that another attraction in county is prime outlets. A lot of those folks that stay in our hotels go to shopping for outlets too. So, I mean, again, you know, we are detracting them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So my name is Kaushik Kakad. I'm representing the Quality in the Econo Lodge in Hagerstown, Maryland. So I'm also, along with these guys, trying to request to waive off those taxes. And which I just want to say one little thing, that we are not here just as a hotelier and serving just the travelers. We are here also being an economy hotel, helping out the county where people are out on the road, homeless, try to help them out, try to accommodate them, take those dirt in our property and serve them as well to, you know, make sure everybody has a shelter to live in. We have stepped up always to, try to help from our pockets even, reducing the rates and just try to accommodate them. And that's one of the other things we've been helping the community with. So one of the other things when we're talking about such a people who are homeless or people in need of money, or our brands are economy brands, which averages their daily rate per night room is about an average of $50 to $60 at the most. And with that said, when you boost up the price, I mean, this economy class people definitely want to look into how much at the end of the day they're going to end up paying with. So at a $60 ADR on room revenue, I mean to say, is $8.50 extra beyond what they would be paying, plus we have a city, county taxes, etc., right? So that really will go up sooner or later. Our hotel industry is going to be hurt. Travelers are going to migrate. They'll go to a different state. So we're just here to request you all to kindly look into this, see how you all can help us out, try to either get rid of this particular thing or drop it down or whatsoever could be done. Peace.
Just 10 seconds more, sir. I'm sorry. When President Trump went to India, just recently, Prime Minister Modi didn't say, hey, here's an 8.50 cents tax, have a nice day. None of those kind of things. You guys have to remember, you're going to be a blip on a radar. That's one of those things is, you have to understand the ramifications that this bill is. We don't want any version of this bill coming up in the future. That's why you want to just rip it out of the wall or rip it out of the ground. There's no sense. If they want to eat Hershey's ice cream with this Paul's, what's that, $15.98? They want to eat Hershey's ice cream, let them pay for it. Why do we having our guest, okay? Hotels are guests, right? They're guests of Washington County. Why are they paying for it? It's a coronavirus for Washington County to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Citizens' participation continues. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Please state your name and address, please.
Craig Morley, 16834 Bucklands Road, Sibyllsville, Maryland. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I want to bring to you some concerns about the Fort Ritchie contract. It's my understanding from the media reports that the purchaser of the property is asking for concessions after entering into a contract to purchase the property. Because of this, the contract does not result in your best net price for the property. The property was being sold as is, and now that's simply not the case. Now, I understand buyers often ask for concessions in the course of a study period, but in this case, granting these concessions puts other potential purchasers as well as the county at an unfair disadvantage. Potential purchasers reviewed the property and submitted offers based on an as-is purchase without consideration of these concessions. Had these other purchasers known these concessions were available, their offers likely would have been significantly higher. The current buyer obtained a contract on an as-is basis and now is attempting to change that, and this results in a disadvantage not only for the other prospective purchasers, also for the county and its taxpayers. Imagine, just using arbitrary numbers, you have a buyer offers $2 million, another offers 1.5. The first buyer, of course, gets the contract. Later, he requests $1 million in concessions. Your net sales price is $1 million. You lost $500,000. Additionally, it seems that the purchaser has been made aware of conditions to the property that were not, during the study period, that were not disclosed to other potential purchasers. If any conditions were disclosed to the buyer after they submitted the contract offer and it was signed, the offers were uninformed and based on incomplete information. This might not be a problem with a private seller. Private sellers are free to give concessions to whomever they please, but this creates certain problems when the seller is a government entity responsible to its citizen taxpayers and under obligation to create a level bidding playing field. The contract purchaser is able to use his new knowledge to create an uneven playing field, negotiating an entirely new deal based on facts other parties were not made aware of. Imagine awarding a road contract And then after the contract is awarded, then you disclose the specifications for your road. It wouldn't happen. Now, previously, the stated goal of this sale was to select a proposal based on certain factors such as job creation, economic growth, tax base increase, and proposals were considered based on how they achieved these goals. You look at, COPT offer from contract from years ago, and the most recent one with the Korean company. They were bringing, they had a plan, agreed upon plan, bringing millions of dollars into the area. Under that criteria, it would be appropriate to make concessions to a purchaser because the development project would be a huge economic boon to the county. In the current situation, however, the stated goal was to sell the property for the best price without regard for the purchaser's intended use. In this case, it is not appropriate to agree to seller concessions after the property is under contract because those same concessions were not offered to all prospective purchasers. Agreeing to significant concessions after the, quote, best offer is accepted will by its very nature result in lower net proceeds to the county. Based on this, I submit the appropriate course of action is to reject proposed concessions and reopen the bidding process while disclosing all property conditions prior to accepting any offers. I come here on behalf of a group of local investors interested in submitting an offer to purchase the property. However, when I attempted last fall, before the property was under contract, to get information on the property in order to submit an offer, I was not able to get a return phone call. We remain interested pending receipt of the property's relevant information, and we are prepared to make a true as-is offer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Citizens' participation continues. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Seeing none, it is time for Rebecca Lane Massey and Mr. Fairborn. Would you please come forward? Mr. Grosh brought 2 dozen. Roger, would you be so kind to introduce the matter, and Rebecca?
Yes, my name is Roger Fairborn. I live at 600 Summit Avenue here in the city of Hagerstown. I'm here on behalf of the Museum of Fine Arts of Washington County to introduce Rebecca. Rebecca received the Sue Hess Award for it's the Arts Advocate of the Year for the citizens, Maryland Citizens for the Arts. Good grief. All I'd like to do with introducing Rebecca, because you know the impact she's had on the community, but I found last night in the last line of her bio a really telling statement. And it says, Rebecca has said, I am privileged to have worked in the field of art museums for my entire career, where I have engaged with a community of creative people who have enriched my life beyond measure. I'm immensely grateful for the gift of art in my life. I don't think you'll find anyone in our county who better advocates for the arts in our community.
Thank you. Did you have some comments?
I just wanted to thank the commissioners for your long and abiding support of the Art Museum. We are partners in the founding of the museum going back to 1929, so over 90 years of a partnership that has seen the museum and the county grow and flourish, bring very positive, I think, kudos to this county. The museum is, as you know, nationally accredited, and I wanted to share with you that just recently we also heard from the Wallace Foundation, which is a national foundation established by DeWitt and Lila Wallace, who were the founders of Reader's Digest. And of course, you all know that we have a wonderful painting in our collection that relates to that. But the Wallace Foundation just found information about our museum through what's called the Cultural Data Arts Project, which is currently managed by Southern Methodist University. And they wrote to me saying, we would like to interview you regarding the consistently impressive work you are leading at the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. The foundation is undertaking research to identify and understand strategies employed by financially successful arts and cultural organizations. We have identified the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts as a high performer nationally on a number of financial and operating health metrics, and wish to better understand the strategies that have led to your success, as well as your insights as to why they have worked so well in your market. And of course, when I spoke with them, I talked about the long relationship that we've had with both the county and the city, and how that has been like a cornerstone of support and encouragement, and also recognition for all of the citizens in this county. The fact that we're able to offer admission-free and many other programs, and that we actively reach out into our community to bring people in to experience, as I have, the joy of working in the arts and the transformative power of art. So I'm grateful to all of you, and thank you for this moment of acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Roger. Rebecca, would you join us?
Some very tall person was here before.
I have a funny story to tell you. And as a fourth grade elementary student, I had a piece of artwork displayed over there, and you have that fourth grade exposition of art every year.
We do indeed.
And I remember our class took a field trip and all pointing back to all the different pieces of artwork. So I was very proud to say I had a piece of artwork hanging in
I don't think you've ever shown it to me, so
yeah.
don't do that.
Believe it or not, I think it was a scribble drawing. So, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I'd like to present the certificate of recognition to Rebecca Massey Lane. And in the certificate, there's about 1,000 words. But I'm only going to pick out the two most important sentences, the first and the last, and all in between is heartfelt as well. So, certificate of recognition presented to Rebecca Massey Lane. The Board of County Commissioners of Washington County hereby recognizes you for distinguished service to Washington County as an advocate of the arts. And finally, congratulations on being a recipient of the Sue Hess Maryland Arts Advocate of the Year Award. And thank you for making a positive difference in the lives of the citizens of Washington County. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Have a round of And thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Can we post some pictures here with the commissioners with you? Where's your center? We'll get you right here in the center. He is up right here. Come on in, Roger, everybody. Historic day. Congratulations.
Anything I have achieved is because of all of us. All right, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you.
Next on the agenda, contract award PUR 1421 Engineering Services. Mr. Hobbs, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to recommend that the board award the traffic count data collection and pavement condition survey projects to the lowest responsive proposer, Pannoni Associates and DFI Development Facilitators Incorporated, a joint venture in the amount of $176,100 and $143,040 respectively. Requests for proposals were provided under the Engineering Services Requirements Contract PUR 1421. The proposals were evaluated in the low price proposal from Pannoni and Associates and DFI joint venture for both projects are in order. The pavement maintenance and rehabilitation program involves pavement maintenance preservation, repair, and rehabilitation. Obtaining traffic count data and road survey information is a valuable part of the program in determining pavement condition and priorities for the approximately 900 miles of road on the inventory. Updated traffic count data is also posted on the county website for use in planning for future projects. The project will utilize available funding in the Pavement Maintenance and Rehabilitation Program budget RDI 024 in the capital improvement plan. Any questions?
Commissioners, comments?
Make the motion to approve Pannoni and Associates for the traffic count, data collection, and pavement survey.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Is this contract annual? Just an annual contract thing that we do?
No, it's at approximately every 3 years we perform the condition survey and traffic counts. Last survey was done in 2017.
Any other comments?
Just to clarify the motion, it is to Pannoni and to development facilitators, right? As it's listed.
Yes, working as a joint venture on the PUR 1421, they're a joint venture.
Thank you for the correction. First and second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Next, intergovernment cooperative purchase, personal protective equipment. Please introduce yourself, sir, and the matter.
Morning, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Subject before you is intergovernmental cooperative purchasing, INTG 19-0029, personal protective equipment for the Division of Emergency Services. The motion is to move by resolution the approval of the purchase of 24 sets of personal protective equipment for the Division of Emergency Services from Whitmire Public Safety Group Incorporated of Williamsport, Maryland, at a contract unit price totaling $56,205.60 based on a contract awarded by the State of New Jersey, solicitation number 17DPP00100, in New Jersey contract T0790. Section 106.3 of the Public Code of Laws of Washington County grants authorization for this board to enter into contracts for services and goods procured by another agency, the determination of being $50,000 or more. We determined that the cost savings of not doing a bid would be an advantage of the county. In an effort to offset the cost associated providing personal protective gear to volunteer firefighters, Washington County began providing additional assistance to volunteer fire companies by providing PPE equipment for distribution to active firefighters throughout Washington County. The intent is to replace the PPE equipment that is damaged or past the service life of 10 years. This program has been going on since 2017. As of the date, we've bought 220 sets of gear. These 24 sets will be distributed throughout the firefighters throughout Washington County. You can see the fiscal impact. Money is budgeted in the operating budget account. We have concurrences from the Division of Director of Hayes, and also you have the quote attached to the ARF from Whitmire, and also Lyons' letter stating that Whitmire is an authorized distributor of that equipment. Any questions?
Commissioners?
Good question. On the very bottom line, it says the additional 24 sets of turnout gear procured for this fiscal year will be distributed to firefighters throughout the county in an ongoing effort to replace aging gear that can no longer be certified. Do we know how many sets of gears no longer certified that were, do you know what that number is?
So this is going to be a combination of two things. One, to make sure that anything that is aged at 10 years is replaced out. There are some departments, from what my understanding, Director Hart is the primary manager of this particular program, that some of the departments are not in a position to completely remove all of the 10-year plus gear that's put into the manufacturers. The second side, it also provides some input gear for new volunteers into the system. So it's not all just replacing gear in and of itself. If you want an answer to that, we can certainly research that and provide that either through email to the commissioners or in staff comments.
That would be great. I'm all for this. I guess one of the things I want to make sure is that all of our firefighters have equipment that's certified and that's, still being used. I don't want a firefighter going out there does not have good equipment.
And you're directly on the primary intent of this program is by providing the gear and making sure it isn't a financial hardship on the departments. It gives us that assurance that those things are being provided, the necessary components to do that job. So we'll certainly do that research and get that information to you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any more comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next bid award, AR-15 rifles with accessories. Rick Curry, Mark Knight. Please introduce yourself and the matter.
Again, it's Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Captain Mark Knight, Washington County Sheriff's Office.
Subject for you is bid award PUR 1456, AR-15 rifles with accessory bundle for Washington County Sheriff's Office. Recommended motion move to award a contract for the purchase of 66 AR-15 rifles with accessory bundle to responsible bidder with the lowest price per unit of $1,450 for a total sum of $95,700 to Precision Firearms of Martinsburg, West Virginia, and the procurement is contingent upon the company being registered and providing proof of being in good standing with the Department of Assessment and Taxation. Bids were accepted this year on January 29th, advertised as we do normally in the local newspaper and the various website medias. We received 4 bids. There is liquidated damages if the vendor does not supply the equipment in the time specified in the bid document, and also the county reserves the right to purchase additional firearm rifles from the vendor with a mutual agreement. And the fiscal impact is in the account as listed in the ARF, concurrences from Sheriff Mullendore. And you also have the bid tab from the various vendors that submitted the proposals for the pricing of the rifles.
Just a curious question. What are they replacing?
They're not replacing any rifles. They're in addition. We have 100 sworn. We have 42 rifles that are currently on the street. 35 of those are Vietnam era rifles that we get free from the military through the MSP DMRO program, and they're 50 years old, but they're still serviceable at this point.
That was going to be my next question. What's the life expectancy replacement schedule of these?
Well, we're still using 50-year-old rifles from Vietnam, so
yeah,
we're just trying to catch up.
Use them.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Have a second. Any further discussion?
Just one last question, because I know while I was in the Navy, we got to shoot a lot, and it was fun. But I know with all the additional guns, you've got additional training. So you have additional training, and then ammo's got a life expectancy. So where are you looking at the recurring cost for this additional 66 guns?
The recurring cost is now we have to qualify at least twice a year, 30 rounds apiece. So that's an incurring cost with ammo. I think what the plan is, we currently, a lot of our guys carry shotguns right now, is that they will go by the wayside and they will continue just to carry the rifle. So it may equal out themselves, with the, getting rid of shotguns and going to a rifle.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to approve is there. First and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, hotel rental tax funding request. Dan Spedden and folks. First, thank you for your patience and waiting to be on the agenda. We're running a little behind, but that's appreciated. Please state your name and address and the matter to discuss.
Good morning. I'm Lori Swain. I'm here with Hagerstown BMX at Fairgrounds Park. This is Scott Cantner. He's the media director. We're here today because Visit Hagerstown and Hagerstown BMX have formed a partnership with a goal to host large-scale regional and national championship BMX events. These multi-day events can attract up to 800 highly competitive racers from all over the country.
This economic development initiative will generate commerce and wages in the food and beverage, retail, transportation, and lodging sectors, and will elevate the profile of Hagerstown as a preferred destination for recreational and competitive cyclists. In order to produce a more competitive bid for these events, capital improvements are needed at the Hagerstown Fairgrounds Park BMX track facility. The facility needs lighting, a public address system, bleacher seating, and a change in elevation of the two race course turns. Planning meetings that have included USA BMX, Visit Hagerstown, and the City of Hagerstown have resulted in a site plan and cost estimate of $360,000. The Visit Hagerstown, Hagerstown BMX, and the City of Hagerstown partnership has also been working with state legislators who've prepared a capital budget request for the 2020 Maryland legislative session. The partnership is also seeking funding assistance from Visit Hagerstown, the Maryland Sports Commission, the Washington County, Maryland Hotel Tax Grant Fund, and private foundations. In Hagerstown, BMX is a true family-friendly sport. We have riders ranging in age from 2 to 60 years old, and it's not uncommon for families to have multiple kids racing. And we even have many families that have parents that have started racing so that they can spend more time with their families. Membership at Hagerstown BMX is affordable, and only nominal fees are charged to compete. Hagerstown BMX also hosts an open ride night for non-members weekly, and we even have bike loaner programs so that anybody can participate if they want to come and try it out. Hagerstown BMX has been a community asset for 20 years, and with these improvements, we're looking forward to Hagerstown BMX to continue to grow and to continue to thrive for years to come.
I was looking at total budget there. Is that all achievable? I mean, I know the Project Open Space is you'll get, right?
That's done already.
And then how about this state capital request?
We put the final touches on the request this week and submitted it to the state legislature. It'll get a bond bill number this week, and we'll go down and testify for the bond bill. The probability of success at the state level is much higher if we can state unequivocally that we have a match back home, and this grant request is the equal match to the state's request.
I would motion to approve.
So I guess I'm trying to, what's the request from Washington County?
150.
It says here the state, so you're requesting 150 from the county and 150 from the state?
Yes.
Correct.
And are there any other?
How about the city of Hagerstown through their motel hotel tax? How much have they contributed through their motel hotel tax?
They have contributed $50,000 through their program open space allocation, and they will be, they've done all the planning and estimate work in-house. It'll be the project manager, and some of the work will be done by city staff. That's the contribution from the city.
Is there value on that in-kind service that you would, dollar value?
What's that?
Is there a dollar value you would assign to their in-kind?
Sitting right here, I'd hate to do that, but you think about what it would cost to manage a $360,000 project. It's not a small amount, but I don't want to put a dollar amount on it. I haven't done any research as an in-kind contribution.
Commissioner Wagner made a motion. There's the first, if we get a second, we can continue discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any more discussion? Please.
I have a couple questions. One, Scott and Laura, I think maybe I met you down at Day in Annapolis. You were down there, so thank you for that and representing Washington County down there. So I just want to make sure here, the total project, and Dan, I know you tried to call me over the weekend. I didn't get to call you back. I apologize.
That's
for
fine.
that. The total project, $360,000. That's the bottom line, right? That's all of it. Help me out. Is this more than a one-time event? This will be.
Yes, well, I mean, it would help the track out. You know, we would use everything. We would continue to use everything. And you can bid on races every year.
So you said there's a lot of people come from out of the area who would
Yes,
stay
there
in
are
a
people
hotel.
coming from all over the country.
Yeah,
Yeah, to answer your question, this is not a one-time event like the USA Cycling contract was 2 years and out. We will bid annually on big regional events and every couple of years on national events. They're not likely to give us a national event every year, but big regional events will fill the void, and we'll continue to bid on events each year.
Contingency plan if the state doesn't come through. Plan B, as we say around here.
Yeah, we'd like to get started on the improvements with the money that we have, and then turn to other sources for it. We don't want to give up on the project by any means.
So what's CVB's contribution?
To the capital improvements, we are not financially, we will contribute to the bid package and to host, our financial investment will be hosting the event, not making the improvements. It's quite a bit of money to get an event like that.
You're doing the marketing and managing this first event. Is that?
It goes further than that. We have to pay for hotel rooms for out-of-town officials, all sorts of other things, caterers.
So that comes out of your budget?
And the CVB will take care of those things, yeah.
Sarah, could you, this comes out of our hotel rental tax. I know we forward funded a lot of projects out of that. Could you give us an update on what we have available, what it would bring us down to?
Sure. The current remaining funds available after commitments is 1.2 million. As far as next year, it looks like we have around 300,000 in costs encumbered or already committed. And then in 2022, we have about 233,000 committed. The annual amount that generally flows into that fund is around $670,000 to put those amounts in perspective.
Have we ever contributed an amount of this large to any other?
There have been larger contributions, mostly economic development related. I mean, you could make a case that it's all economic development related, but these are more from business development type contributions. The Maryland Theater has a 4-year contribution of 114,000 almost. So that's an annual contribution for 4 years.
Any more discussion? Oh, please do.
I do, I'm sorry. The organization in charge, Hagerstown BMX.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I'm not as familiar with this, some of my counterparts may be, nonprofit? Are there paid staff members? Are there?
We're all nonprofit, all volunteers. All of our kids race and some spouses. So we're all invested. You know, we want to see this succeed. We want to see all the kids do great things. So, yeah, we're all nonprofit.
And no salaries?
No salaries.
Nice.
I'll support it.
We've had 2 motions discussion. I can call for the vote.
I'll support it. Just one comment. We have a lot of great organizations in the community that I think would also benefit for an amount this large for their entity, for their enterprise. And it looks like this activity, which is a nonprofit, it's being funded 97% by tax dollars. And I know it's hotel rental tax dollars, but it's still public money. I just want us to be cognizant of that. I mean, for many projects, we do ask for a greater contribution outside private contribution. This project is getting 97% funded by local tax dollars, so that's I think that's significant.
Thank you for that comment. There's no other comments. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0, approved. Thank you all very much and best wishes to you.
Thank
you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dan. Please forgive the delay. Next up, second quarter adjustments to the Board of Ed. Mr. Brandenburg, welcome. Please introduce the matter. And good morning. Oh, hey, Jeff. Good morning to you.
Morning, Commissioners. Jeff Prude, Chief Operating Officer, Washington County Schools. David Brandenburg, Executive Director of Finance. We are here for our quarterly adjustments. This is second quarter adjustments from FY 2020. As we've discussed previously, state regulations do require that the cross-category adjustments come before you, and these adjustments were reviewed by the Board of Education's Finance Committee and approved at the last Board of Education meeting by the full Board of Education. And with that, we can accept any questions you might have on any particular adjustments.
Commissioners, questions? Any questions from the commissioners, comments?
No, I'm good.
If not, there's a motion, is there a second? A first, a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Next up, second quarter excuse me, water and sewer bonds. Excuse me, we'll cross it off.
Still morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here just to discuss water and sewer bonds for the upcoming bond issuance. So every year annually, as we pass our budgets in May, we generally approve an amount to be issued for the next year. So we're issuing bonds this May for the budget that was passed last year, which is FY20. In the ARF, you can see there are three projects related to water and sewer bonds. The pump station upgrades for $500,000, the capacity management project for $3.2 million, and Smithsburg wastewater treatment plant upgrade for $2.5 million. As I sit here and look at this, there may be an adjustment to that pump station upgrades. That amount may not be needed, but we'll bring that back at a later time for discussion. In consultation with our financial advisors, they had mentioned possibly issuing bonds over a 30-year term versus a 20-year term. I wanted to bring this before the board to get your input in making that change. Historically, we have always issued our bonds over a 20-year term. The benefit that would be provided through issuing bonds over a 30-year term would be lower debt service for our current ratepayers. That debt service would be extended 30 years, so it would increase for ratepayers down the line. And you can see I have included an estimation here for a 20-year issuance using the figures above. So the total for those projects was $6.2 million. So assuming $6.2 million in bonds over a 20-year term versus a 30-year term would be a difference in interest cost by about $1 million. So I'm here before you to ask for your consideration of a 30-year term versus a 20-year term. The water sewer, go ahead. Do you have a question, Court?
In a little, I was going to let you finish.
Okay. The water sewer funds, we've been giving them a lot of attention lately. So any reduction in cost that we can see now would benefit the ratepayers today. And rates for rates that we're seeing today are generally low. Maybe if the interest rate was higher, I may not be here before you. But I've used a 3% assumption for this demonstration. We would probably come in a little bit less than that, hopefully less than that, maybe 2.6, 2.7, but rates are generally lower right now. Go ahead.
Sorry. For our credit rating, what would be the difference between a 20-year and a 30-year interest rate?
You mean as far as how would it affect our bond rating?
No, not how it would affect our bond rating, but a 20-year bond is going to, usually it's slightly lower than a 30-year bond, but right now I know there's almost no disparity, so are we looking at 10 basis points?
I don't have the exact answer for you, but I did check my math, my figures here, the difference in the dollar value of the interest with our consultants, and they agreed with my estimation. So I'm not sure as far as how many basis points would be the difference.
I mean, my opinion is right now with interest rates as low as they are, the time value of money, we're going to be able to save a decent amount currently, and you're pushing off, but time value of money, this would be a benefit to the taxpayer. So,
Yeah.
What, to go to 30 years?
yeah,
But you also have 10 more years of interest here, correct?
you're right, but at 3%, if our economy is growing, then at 3%, I'm able to have more money now than I am having it later. Just like it's the same thing. If $100 now is worth more than $100 30 years down the road.
And that's what all those home buyers thought when they refinanced their houses, 10, 15% beyond their values. They took the money and
Well, that's,
in the end.
we're not refinancing a house.
I understand that. I understand
So it's
that.
a-
Or when they bought, or when they purchased. And
That's the whole thing. That's why people mortgage
so my
out.
next question is, how are the ratepayers benefiting?
The ratepayers would benefit because if we issue bonds for 20 years, then the interest on those right now,
Is it going to be, so when you say they're going to benefit, are they going to benefit by not having a rate increase at any point in time?
rate increases will probably be necessary for the next several years, if not 5 years. But maybe the rates wouldn't have to be as high. The rate increases wouldn't have to be as high. You know, I think that anything that we can do to try to support the funds and to try to support the ratepayers, we want to do. We've talked a little bit about holding some positions and not filling them if they're not needed right away. We've been looking at a lot of different avenues for ways to save in the water and sewer funds. We do anticipate an appropriation from the general fund this year to support the water fund. So I think there are a lot of considerations. I don't see in the near future that rate increases won't be necessary for those funds. I do think they will be necessary. But how the ratepayers benefit today is that the total cost for the debt service would be slightly less. And so, you know, that would be cost that the ratepayers would not have to make up. So is there a substantial amount there that would say 3% versus 3.2% of an increase? You know, I don't know. I don't think so. But I think from the viewpoint of the health of the fund overall, anything we can do to keep our costs lower today is something that we're looking at.
What would be the difference in a 20-year versus 30-year payment? On this size, approximately.
So bonds of 6.2 million, the total debt service, that's what you're asking, over the 20-year period?
No, over a year. What's a year payment versus a 20-year versus?
1 year payment, about $100,000 difference. So $415,000 in debt service versus $315,000 in debt service. So $100,000 is a good chunk of money to us.
Sarah, I'm looking at the projects that could be covered.
Sure.
I know it says could be. Pump station upgrades. Can you tell me geographically where are those pump stations? Or maybe,
So I had a conversation earlier, and feel free to jump in, Jeremy, if you want to, that they may not even need that 500,000 that's being discussed here. So we actually anticipate coming in with a budget adjustment to reduce that amount from here. That was information that was
where are
provided
they
to
if
me.
they would be needed?
Please come forward, Jeremy. Introduce yourself, please.
He said, where would they be if they would be?
Jeremy Moos, Division Director of Environmental Management. One of them is our PO3 or PO2 pump station. Theirs are located along Virginia Avenue. But like Sarah said, there is a possibility that we will not need that money, you know, that we're looking at. And we're going to bring that before you, you know, in the coming weeks to actually not issue those bonds.
That's right.
So just one on Virginia Avenue, one pump?
There's
is
one
under-
we're working on right now in the Oak Ridge area as well.
Okay.
We currently
Any
have
more?
this project, and there's funding assigned to it to cover some of the projects that we have
And
currently.
the big one is the one in Morgansville, but that's under our capacity management plan.
What about the one on the, directional wise, I don't know, Governor Lane Boulevard towards Spielman Road?
I'm not entirely sure about that, sir, but I can definitely get that information back to you. as far as upgrades on that pump station.
Yeah, I believe there was a big upgrade slated. I just want to make sure, I'm curious as to whether or not that pump could be part of this bond issuance.
Well, I'll definitely look into that and get that back to you, to the commissioners.
I think, the reason that I came before you is because we're working on our official statement right now. We're working very closely with our bond counsel and with our financial advisor. And so they've asked me if the county would be willing or interested in doing a 30-year term versus a 20-year term. I did not want to move forward too far in that process before bringing that question to the commissioners.
I would be okay as long as the yields are comparable. I don't want to pay a higher interest rate, a significantly higher interest rate for a 10-year bond term. But what we're looking for is cash flow savings. Time value of money would be my thing.
Okay.
So depending on the interest rate would depend on the answer.
Okay.
I need more information. I'm tending, what I'm hearing in my gray matter is I probably would prefer to stay with the 20.
With the 20.
But I want to think about that some more and see some more stuff.
Okay.
Any other
And I'd like to
commissioners?
know what the savings is going to be to the rate users.
Okay.
Sarah, what I'm hearing is you need to come back.
Yep, I hear that.
Thank you.
And the location of all the pump stations.
Yes, sir.
That could be paid for with.
Yep, I'll have that to you.
Okay.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next presentation of the FY '21/F30 capital budget draft. Sarah, you're up. Please introduce your
Good
staff and-
afternoon, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer. I have here with me Kelsey Mace, Deputy Director of Budget and Finance. She has some handouts for you, and so we can follow along. At the time of submission of the ARF, we did not have this information available. So since it's budget season, we are flying by the seat of our pants here, making changes almost every day. So I wanted to just make sure that we kind of look at the changes from the first draft. You guys have a complete draft, and so that'll help with the timing of this presentation as well. If you move to the page 1-5 in the handout that you just received, I just wanted to point out to you that in this draft, no substantial funding changes or difference in assumption has been made, except for tax-supported bonds did increase to the $12 million figure that we all are aware of. In some of those years, maybe it was a little less than 12 million because of the number of projects that we had in those years. So by changing some things around, we now have enough project costs for those years to absorb $12 million in bonds. So nothing significant changing there. If you move to the next page, you will see it's labeled, theirs is different?
You need to go a couple more pages.
Okay, go a couple more pages to 7-1, and I will just do an overview of the changes that we have made. This is the airport fund, and the only change made here was a very small change, and it was related to the airport having available funds to contribute to the capital plan. So we removed general fund dollars and we increased the airport contribution. So nothing significant there. As we move through the operating budgets, these are things that may come to light. They had additional funds to support, so we made that change. The next one, Board of Ed. Okay, the next page, if you flip, you will come to the Board of Education. Highlighted in purple is what changed, and those were related to just changes in the capital maintenance request from the Board of Education. At the time that they submitted their budget, they had certain information that just changed slightly. And so we wanted to make sure that we included that updated information in our capital plan. For their capital maintenance projects, they have requested funding for South Hagerstown High School roof, Smithsburg High HVAC, Western Heights Middle School roof, and the North Hagerstown High chiller. So those are the projects that have been requested in that capital maintenance line.
Sarah?
Yes.
On the capital money, and is it like a 70, is it the 79, 21% match if we come up with 21%?
That's correct for, some of the projects, and maybe this is accurate, maybe it's not. I think one of the projects that started last year may be held at the old rate of 7129. But yes, going forward, I think the capital maintenance projects are at 70.
Okay, so.
But a correction to it, it's not just what the county puts, it's what is local contributions. So it's not just the county numbers.
So, I don't remember the amount. The board's requesting how much in capital this year?
The board has requested another, like about 2.7 million more than what the county has currently programmed to provide over the $4 million.
Okay, so my question is, of that 2.7 million, we would only have to come up with.
That would be the local portion, so that's a local
then-
portion only
Okay.
to match the state funding. If the county were to provide match for the state funding for the capital maintenance projects, it would be looking at an additional $2.2 million contributing to the plan. And how I got that was taking their 2.7. They have 500,000 in here for elementary school 1. So that would.
So if we came up with and I'm just, if. So if the county were to contribute an additional 2.2 million, how much would the state add to that? So it's not that they need 2.2 million, they need our 2.2 million plus.
Yeah, that
the state's
2.2
contribution.
would roughly represent our 21%.
Okay, that clears it up for me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
correct.
And that was what my comment was in the beginning. I think we can find more capital money if the Board of Ed is willing to move some money in the capital so they can get that whole 79% match.
Is there a ratio that you're thinking of, Commissioner Minor-Schmidt?
I don't have a ratio set, but I think we need to be partners in this.
Okay, we can reach out to them?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I've had some conversations with school board members recently. I would be in favor of looking at something, if there's a match or not a match.
Something, yeah.
Some kind of a
Contribution
from both of us. I would be willing to explore that. I also think it would behoove us to possibly take advantage of available state money that would be sitting on the table otherwise for some projects. I am in support of that. I mean, that goes kind of against. It kind of coincides with why the income tax rate was increased to take advantage of a disparity grant because we were letting money sit on the table. Let's not let money sit on the table then if that's the philosophy we're going to hold.
Yeah, it does contribute to future state funding that will be available for the Board of Ed. It goes into that calculation, so it is important.
And Sarah, I'd also like to see what's going to be requested, possibly what's going to be requested the next couple of years.
Okay, as far as what projects will be,
And our
individual projects?
and all of the capital cost.
Okay, for the Board of Ed?
Our portion.
Our portion, okay.
We currently do 4 million.
We currently have $4 million programmed in the plan.
We do that every year.
We do have that programmed every year. Some of the challenges are that there are a lot of costs that are not matched by the state. So some of those costs could be equipment, furniture, engineering. And so those costs do add up quickly when you're talking about a $40 million school, so.
And if we do, using Terry's words, we'd be contributing 6 million, correct?
It could very easily
And that gives us a chance
increase.
to leverage more money with the 6 million, as the other commissioners have stated.
It would be available to match. Well, not necessarily, because if the Board of Ed is only still receiving state funds of a certain amount and our 4 million is matching those state funds, but there are other costs that the state is not contributing to, that's really where any increase over the 4 million may actually be used for. So it may not increase necessarily the amount of state money that we receive. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sure the Board of Ed will let me know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then just let everybody, there is a bill, as sure everyone knows, I think it's House Bill 1, and it's about school construction. that the state wants us to put a significant amount of money in, but there's a lot of ranking, and to be honest with you, majority of that school's construction money is going to go to the Baltimore City Board of Education, but hopefully we, in rural counties, will get a little bit more down the road.
Okay. Other than the Board of Ed, if you continue flipping through your packet, I'd like you to come to HCC, which is labeled 11-1. So we received some information from Hagerstown Community College that their submission was incorrectly submitted. We had programmed last year in the plan $1.4 million in local funds for their CVT instructional facility. For the Center for Business for Entrepreneurial Studies. And so when that project was submitted again, it had reduced that $1.4 million contribution from the county. And that was inaccurate submission on their part. The CIP committee did discuss this and has tried to make changes to the plan to accommodate putting that 1.4 million back in the plan. So that is what you see here on this page, and why there are changes to the roads department, which if you continue to flip a couple more pages to 17-1, you will see that we had made some adjustments to the road improvement budget to accommodate that request. No major changes, a lot of funding changes just between 1 year. And this was reviewed by Scott Hobbs, who is in charge of this budget. Are there any questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, then we will move forward with the recommendation to contact the Board of Education on some sort of funding contribution, and we will bring back information for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, health insurance rate increase. Sarah, welcome back.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and the matter.
Steve Dillman, CBiz consultant to the county.
And Rachel Brown, HR Director.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer. Each year through the budget process, we evaluate our health insurance plan. We are self-funded. Previous year healthcare costs are reviewed by a third party, CBiz, which is Steve Dillman, who's here today, to provide trending analysis, anticipated cost expectations, and contribution recommendations for budget purposes. In addition, the allocation of costs between the employer, which is the county, and the employee portion are reviewed. A review of the 2019 and 20 medical expenses recommend an increase of 5% for fiscal year 2021 over the 20 budget. So that is what we have currently programmed in our 21 budget proposal that we'll be talking about in the weeks to come. The 5% increase is expected to be shared proportionately between employees and the county as the employer. The budget for 2020, I'd like to remind you that healthcare costs increased by 7% for that budget, but those costs were not shared equally between the employer and the employee. The employee amounts remain unchanged for that fiscal year 2020 budget, despite the 7% increase. If you take a look at the chart on the lower half of the page of the ARF, you will notice the percentages for the employee and the employer portions of the medical costs. So in 2019, you can see that the low medical for employees was 7.5%, and the high medical for employees was 12.5%. In 2020, because the budget increased by 7%, but no costs were passed to the employees, those percentages changed. The employees' portion was now 7.01%, and the high plan employee portion was 11.68%, reducing from the previous 12.5% contribution. What I have before you today is for consideration to basically put those percentages back in place where they were in 2019 and increasing the employee portion of the low plan to 7.5% and the employee portion of the high plan to 12.5%. The fiscal year 21 budget includes a proposed 2.5% step and a 1% COLA. We looked at the annual increase for the lowest full-time wage using that assumption, and the increase would be $915. Comparing this increase to an increase in the most expensive medical coverage available, which would be the high family, the employee would still net an annual increase, as that high family coverage would only increase $395 as compared to the $915. And just for your, well, I shouldn't probably say that. Okay, the chart below provides information relating to the number of employees in each plan. The existing monthly costs for both the employee and the employer are shown. The proposed rates are shown. And the effective monthly change for the employees is shown to the right. So you can see if we increase our budget by 5%, and if we make the employees portion 7.5% for the low medical and 12.5% for the high medical, the change to the employee on a monthly basis is shown on the right-hand side of that chart. The reason we're just talking about medical insurance here is because there are no proposed changes to the dental coverage or the vision coverage as far as cost. And there are no recommended increase or change to co-pays, deductibles, and things of that sort. The 5% increase shared proportionately approximately will cost the county $650,000, making no change to the employee contribution of healthcare expenses. If we did not pass costs on to the employees, would cost the county approximately $150,000 above that. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
I just want to highlight the fact that in our conversations with CBIZ, that we wanted to make sure that there weren't going to be any other changes, so with co-pays, deductibles, and other aspects of the health plan.
So we are here, commissioners, for consideration and hopefully a consensus to move forward with the budget in the manner of increasing our budget by 5% and reestablishing the percentages that the employees had paid for many years prior to the 2020 budget.
Real quick question. Last year, I know we did a lot of adjustments, and one of those was to hopefully lower the usage of ER visits. Did we notice any trend with the ER visits and versus urgent care from the previous years to last year?
I don't know if you know that offhand, but I can check with Aetna.
I don't know what the change was, but we can get that for you.
Okay.
We'll
I
look
was just
into
wondering
that
how,
for you.
hopefully that change we had is we saw a benefit in.
Right.
And wasn't there something about using plans, people for MRI instead of using people outside the plan? Wasn't there encouragement on that as well?
I think there definitely was encouragement on that. We had a lot of discussion last year related to the healthcare because of the cost increases that we were seeing. I do anticipate that I can't imagine there not being a change based on, the co-pays last year. We increased for emergency room to $200. And so I think that does impact decisions. Our urgent care copay is still very low at $35. And so I think people are taking advantage
So there's
of
another
that.
option other than going to emergency rooms to go to.
Oh, yeah,
care.
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right, you want to,
I'd like a consensus to move forward with a budget increase of 5% and then the employee portion changing from the current year of 7.01% for the low medical to 7.5% for low, and the high medical from 11.68 to 12.5%.
commissioners?
I'm good.
There's one, there's two.
I'm good, and we can make the final decision as more clearer budget numbers come through.
Yeah, that's correct.
Correct. Okay, there's five. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you want to take a brief recess before we begin the mobile home park tax discussion? Are we okay to go forward? Are you okay? All right, next up, Todd Hershey, Andrew Bright, Sarah.
Commissioners, the matter was set for your consideration today. There was a public hearing on the proposed revision to the mobile home park tax ordinance. The hearing was held on January 28th. The draft or proposal that is attached to your ARF is as published before the public hearing, with the exception that on page 4 of the proposal, there is a provision to address a concern that Treasurer Hershey had regarding collection of any unpaid taxes, that they would in fact result in a lien on the real estate on which the mobile home park is operated. The only other question I think that I could anticipate or is that the wording, the definition of gross monthly charges upon which the tax would apply parallels language that exists in the current resolution, which was adopted in July of 1963. Of course, none of us were in our present chairs in 1963 to know why that language was written the way it is. However, looking at the case law relating to this type of tax and other similar types of taxes in Maryland, it appears that on occasion people have operators of one kind or another have recharacterized things from rental or whatever the tax in that case was intended to apply to, and called it a fee. Instead of charging rent of this amount, we just charge a user fee on some other service in the park in order to evade that tax. I don't know that that's ever happened in this case, but I can only surmise that that's the reason that the tax has been on gross monthly charges to try to be inclusive in that fashion. You certainly have the legal right to leave the tax as it is, to reduce it, or to repeal it altogether. And you've, at this point, heard very many persuasive arguments for any or all of those three options. That's about all I can present at this point, unless there are questions.
I have a quick question. From the way the previous tax was written and the way our ordinance was written, the way this ordinance is written, the way I understand that, if they collect $400 in rent, they're supposed to be paying the 15%, okay, and the new one, $25 of the $400. So they collect $400, they pay $25 to the treasurer, they get to keep $375. Not collect $400, charge $25 tax above that, and they get to keep $400. Am I correct in that understanding?
That's the intent, as I understand it, of the wording of this ordinance.
In the previous ordinance?
Well, in the previous ordinance was a little more vague in that regard, and it's a subject of controversy, as I understand it, with at least one of the mobile home park operators.
Okay. So I want to make sure that that was the clarification. This is not a sales tax. This is not an additional tax. This is supposed to, you collect $400, you're supposed to take your money out of that.
That's the intent of the wording of this ordinance, correct?
Todd, on that section, I see this, what you referred to highlighted. Just, does that say something about that? On section 5.04.
Regarding collection?
Yeah, why was that highlighted again, Andrew?
There was an incident regarding a separate tax, collection of the hotel tax, where the operator of the hotel was apparently not the owner of the real estate upon which it sat, and when the tax was unpaid, there was great difficulty in trying to force collection of it.
That's correct, Andy. This is not an easy business. It is hard getting every dime. And so, placing a lien on the real estate, the mobile home, I did not have the authority in the past to place a lien on real estate for unpaid mobile home taxes. And we do have some people behind on mobile home taxes. And we work closely with them to pull them up to speed. But the same situation did occur with the hotel motel tax. And, we want to collect every dime. We want everyone to pay the fair share.
Now, I also do agree with the residents that if this is, that it shouldn't be hidden, that, if they're paying $400, that it should be, they should be able to see what that tax being paid is. I agree with that, because I understand their concern of it being a hidden tax.
I agree with Court on that.
That concept runs at a little bit of a tension with the calculation of the tax. We don't want it to be an add-on tax, but on the other hand, we don't want it to be an invisible tax.
Exactly. Well, my thought is, hey, we collected $400, $25 of the tax, this tax being remitted. Or whatever that, whatever we end up passing.
Commissioners, any recommendations?
I still think with any tax, we're looking at double taxation. Maybe it's 1.5 times taxation if we're just reducing it, but the residents of a mobile home park pay already indirectly, kind of like they do now, a portion of the property owner's property tax on that real estate. I mean, that's factored in at the landlord level as to what he or she needs to charge in addition to what they want to make in income on the mobile home park as a tax, because they're going to pay that property tax. So it's already being paid. I think any tax is still a double taxation. It might be a little less, but it's still a double tax. I watched a movie over the weekend, a movie I hadn't seen in a while, The Long, Long Trailer with Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball. And I wasn't anticipating any kind of thought about our topic today, but I saw as the trailer that was pulled behind the car, I think it was an old Mercury.
Yep, up the Rocky Mountains, wasn't it?
Yeah. They went from one mobile home park to the next, rather frequently. And that was a good movie, and it made me think, okay, that's transient lifestyle. That's transient living if you move around like that. These homes that we're looking at now, they can't be pulled behind of a convertible. I mean, they have to be moved with permits and a big rig and go down the interstates and maybe have police escorts follow you. These aren't transient homes. These are, for the most part, once they're set up, they're there for a while. I don't think we should segregate what kind of a home you live in as to what kind of tax you're going to pay. We have a property tax for whether you live in a townhome or if you live in a single-family residence or maybe a condo. It's a real estate tax. And they're already taxed on their real estate. I'm opposed to any kind of a tax. We're not looking at that transient lifestyle anymore to capture that, and they already are paying a tax.
I agree we're not looking at transients. I have to disagree on the double taxation, because I actually called SDAT and asked them how it's being taxed and how compared to an apartment for that argument. So they're actually taxed on an income basis. So they're not taxed on what the valuation of the property, if it's a building or anything like that, it's taxed on what an income basis is. So on an apartment, you're paying the total amount of income in there. So you're looking at this. If you rent a mobile home from one of the ones that the owners might own, so you're not an owner, you're a renter of a mobile home, you have to pay the space tax, and then you've got to pay the rental amount, okay? So if they all were owned by the property owner, then they would be paying, their income would be much higher, thus their taxes would also be higher. So that would be a true comparison to an apartment. Currently, they're only paying the taxes on the income as if it's the land that is generating the income, not the property that is generating income. So they're not paying the same equivalence of a tax of an apartment. So
You're helping me out with my argument there. You're absolutely right. If they're not being taxed the same, that's not fair. That's not right.
I agree with you.
That needs to be done.
I 100% agree with you.
And what they are being taxed on when you combine both sides of the equation is more than what their home is worth by far.
That's not true. So if you look at how the SSTAT is being done, if you look at an apartment and the amount, so that using that exact example, if you had that trailer and that trailer was owned by the property owner, and then that income was then being calculated to part of the.
I'm sorry, no, I can't ask you. I'm sorry, I can't have any participation from the audience.
If that income is being calculated to SSTAT, then their real estate taxes would be higher, and then it would be a comparable amount. Since that income is not being calculated in the SSTAT, then the real estate property is being taxed at a lower amount than what it would be if the income of the trailer property was being assessed. So I 100% agree that this tax is excessive and needs to be lowered. 100% agree with that. I also believe that it should be calculated as property. I do agree with the gentleman that it should be statewide, that they're calculated as property and pay the tax on the assessed value of it, not this random tax.
Commissioners, any more comment, suggestion?
Well, based on these mobile homes, obviously, they're going to decrease in assessed value every year. So the property owners have been paying an exuberant amount of money in the form of taxes over the years. So now all of a sudden we're just going to say, we've already collected this amount of money. Now we're going to either reduce or repeal the taxes today. What compensation are we going to provide to them for years past? So, just for that reason alone, I think personally the taxes should be repealed. I mean, they've already been overtaxed, and now we're going to talk about either repealing or reducing the tax amount. I think they've paid their fair share over the years, and then some. I mean, that's just my opinion. So for me, it's going to be, I'm in favor of just repealing the tax.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I don't necessarily disagree with court. I think there has to be a tax. Here's the problem. You say that they've been paying their fair. They've been using every service you can think of for years. So you have to pay for services in Washington County. I don't care how you cut it, how you look at it, you have to pay for services. The roads are plowed, the school buses are coming, this medical ambulance are coming, fire trucks are coming, police are coming. Someone's got to pay for that. And they don't necessarily going to decrease I agree with the assessment of the unit itself. I'd agree with that. Come in and say, if you got $35,000 unit, let's pay taxes on a $35,000 unit. But again, like I said last time, careful what you wish for. There happens to be a couple higher price units there that sell for $70,000. It's going to jack up and I know there's some that sold for 70. I can show you 60, and a lot of them aren't. The average I think we come up with is 35, 40. That's what your taxes are going to be based on this assessment. So am I in favor of reducing? Do I think the residents have paid too much? Yeah, I do. But I'm not going to repeal it. In my opinion, I'm at $20, $25. So.
Commissioners?
So we have a $20. Any less?
20, 25.
We'll go to 20.
If it's all right unless there's any other discussion, I'll make the motion to make it 7.5% or $20 per month, whichever is less, with the corrections that we talked about earlier, that this is being seen on the statement or on the bill.
Have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? And we can go to discussion.
I'll second it.
Have a first and a second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, I call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
3-2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, ethics ordinance revisions. Andrew Bright.
Commissioners, on November 12th, 2019, you took under advisement recommendations from the Ad hoc Ethics Ordinance Review Committee, and those recommendations incorporated recommendations which were made by the State Ethics Commission. Those changes that were prescribed by the State Ethics Commissions take into account provisions of the Public Ethics Law, the Code, Annotated Code of Maryland, and some provisions of the Code of Maryland regulations. So what has been attached to the ARF, in addition to the recommendations from the Ad hoc Committee, is a draft version of our current ethics ordinance with red line insertions of those recommended changes. What we would seek at this time is some direction from the board to schedule a public hearing if in fact you wish to incorporate those changes into our ethics ordinance.
Commissioners, discussion? But no matter what we would say today, it has to go to a public hearing.
That's true. No changes could be made today, but if you directed it to be so, we'd schedule it for public hearing. The changes that have been include some mandatory changes which are set out in the Maryland Code and really are not the realm of what is optional. Some of the changes, however, are optional changes that were suggested by the Ethics Commission because they would clarify and be consistent with things that the Commission has ruled are already violations of other provisions. So those changes are more of a clarification. They would not probably be a substantive change to the outcome of any given situation, but they would at least codify what's prohibited and what is not prohibited.
In addition to going to public hearing, the version will have to be reviewed and approved by the State Ethics Commission as well. So we're seeking direction as to we can move forward with the process altogether.
And there's, sorry.
And if you wanted the proposal going to public hearing to look different, then you need to provide us direction in that regard.
All right, there's public hearing where there'll be citizens' comment.
There would be citizens' comment at the public hearing.
Yeah, and they
yes.
could email if they can't attend or.
Be the same as any other public hearing.
Yeah. Okay. But after the public hearing is closed, no further comment. So people who can't attend could email. Right?
Well, this is legislative hearing rather than quasi-judicial, so we got a little more leeway.
I'm just
there.
making sure we give everybody an opportunity is really my source of inquiry. All right, commissioners, any more comments?
I've got two things. First, I know in Annapolis there's almost every week there's some type of ethics bill going through because of things that happened in the last couple of years. Should we, and I hate saying this, but one, should we wait until all of those things are passed? Because if we put these out for a public hearing and then we've got to change it because Annapolis made a new law or adjustment, so that we'd have to do a second one? That's my first question. The second one is, I know I've been saying this since campaigning over a year ago. I want to remove the county commissioners at least a little bit from the appointment of the people that are on the Ethics Commission. And I know by law we are required to appoint them. But what I would like is sort of what the governor does with appointing judges, is that we set a committee, and we can put the people on that committee whose job is to nominate the people to the Board of County Commissioners, that then we'd be able to approve or disapprove their names. That's giving us one step away from where it currently is, that if something happens with an ethics violation with ourselves, we're appointing the people that could oversee us. I would like us to truly consider that. I know in the ad hoc committee, they said that recommendation was political. I 100% believe it's political, and that's why I want to do it. I want to be able to remove ourselves from that ability and say, hey, let's have a different group nominate the people. By law, we're required to appoint them, so we could either accept or decline those nominations. So I would like to see that in our ethics ordinance whenever we do adopt it.
Or at least in there for the public hearing.
Exactly. Yep.
Commissioners, anybody else have any other suggestions for that?
I have suggestions that I've brought up too in the past before. I don't necessarily think the concerns have always stemmed around who picks the members. I think the concern stems around those members that are picked, what authority do they have? They don't have authority to issue opinions based on items that fall outside of financial gain. I think our ordinance could go a little deeper. I have mentioned, and I didn't see much in here on that, about how is it appropriate for our county attorney to be the spokesperson or the legal representation to the Ethics Commission from the county standpoint, if there might be a concern that goes before them pertaining to their boss. It's nothing bad against our county attorney in that regard, but just the appearance of that conflict of interest. And I think that's something that wasn't discussed. I think there's other issues that I would still like to have presented. I know we had a great panel, and I appreciate their input, but I still think it's incomplete. And if waiting a little while would give us an opportunity to hear what the state has to say and also incorporate some of our own opinions, thoughts, I'm okay with that. But
Yeah, I'm all right. So this my only comment is we're just singling out ethics with the commissioners. This board also does all the ethics for all the county. So my other suggestion to entertain is that we bring another ethics board from another county or another state to come in for specific ethics that include commissioners. The rest of the board can handle.
Well, I wonder if maybe
that was brought to me by a citizen why we wouldn't.
If we might be able to structure our ethics commission in a way that we require an attorney to be a member. That eliminates that for us. That way, it's not a boss, it's not a coworker that they may be issuing an opinion on.
Well, that was one of my original suggestion over a year ago, was to have 5 community stakeholders, each as a committee have the ability to appoint them. And the community stakeholders that I chose, one was that I'm recommending. One was the Washington County Bar Association. So they have a member on this committee that's going to recommend for us appointment. But it was the Washington County Bar Association. It was MML. So you have the cities in there. You have I think the hospital is a very good one. The Chamber of Commerce and the Board of Education. So you have members of those organizations that are part of a committee that would nominate people to us.
Did you say the Board of Education? I thought in the past you said the teachers.
What I said was the Board of Education, Teachers Association combined, that they together would have a member on the committee. Again, this is a nominating committee. They're not appointing.
I'd like to have further discussion on which groups.
Agreed.
I thank you for your early suggestions. So
I kind of like some of those groups that you mentioned. MML was something that I had mentioned too, because some of our smaller municipalities, their ethics cases are heard by our ethics commission. I don't think the city of Hagerstown, they have their own, but some of our smaller municipalities, so I think that would certainly be appropriate. Quite honestly, the hospital, we've been in deals with them to provide security and to purchase land and to sell land. I think that is a conflict of interest. A hospital great group of people. I know some board members, I know employees, but I think we need to be careful. Chamber of Commerce, business influence could be exerted on that, and we know many of those issues come before us. I would have a concern with that. And I think I might be the only one among here that's ever served as president of a Chamber of Commerce. With the Board of Education or the Teachers Association, again, I'm the only member of us that was endorsed by a Teachers Association, but I don't think it's appropriate because they endorse candidates for office. So I think we need to be careful there. So I think that could take us down a slippery slope if we.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is if we would agree to that, those committees or those groups would be yet to be determined. Is that what you're saying? Because right now.
But we need to be careful with if we go down that path.
And again, if you don't have some consequences for violations, you're wasting your time. You've got
That's
to
the
have
crux
some
of it.
concrete consequences for violations.
Agreed. I mean, this isn't rocket science, guys. I mean, I agree with you, what you said. I mean, I don't know how I'd want to pick it. Sort of what Wayne said, or some of them I didn't like, but it's just a talking point. Could be one of many.
Suggestions.
We got to make sure it extends over international waters to another country too, so, with consequences.
All right, so what am I hearing, a consensus is we want to move forward with your idea?
Yeah, I think we should wait. I mean, I'm for waiting until see
Oh,
what.
okay, let's wait and see how the
I
state.
think we need to wait till the state comes off, finishes with theirs, but I would like to step out of the process and have a little bit of a distance with the nominating process.
Consensus, we'll wait and see what happens at the state level and bring it back. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Next subject, North Point Development. Please come forward and introduce yourself and the matter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Susan Small, Director of Business Development. And I have my colleague from the city today.
I'm Jill Thompson, Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Hagerstown.
Today we have before you a motion to approve the agreement between the City of Hagerstown, the Board of County Commissioners for funding towards the reconstruction of Vasel Boulevard. The funding is in regards to the project. We'll give you a little bit of a description of the project here. The proposed North Point development includes 2.2 million square feet of new warehouse construction in 4 buildings, approximately $139 million in investment, with a possibility of over 1,500 jobs total. Buildings 1 and 3 are planned to start construction in March 2020, with completion in December of 2020. Buildings 2 and 4 are planned to start construction in March of 2021, with completion in December of 2021. The current conditions of Vasel Boulevard are not quite adequate for the scope of the project, and Vasel Boulevard is going to need some significant improvements. To give you a little bit of breakdown on how that is panning out at the moment, so the pavement on Vasel Boulevard was originally designed for 8,000 vehicles a day and a maximum of 960 trucks per day. It currently has about 13,000 vehicles a day and 750 trucks a day. The traffic study impact done for this project is suggesting that at full build-out in 2022, the average daily traffic for Vasel Boulevard will be about 17,000 cars per day, and the trucks could be approximately 1,500. So we're looking at more than twice the original design. In light of that, we're asking that we take a look at a private-public agreement between the city and the county to try and mitigate the roadway improvement costs that are approximately $6 million in total. This agreement, as you know, is consistent with the county, city, and other partnerships with the state and local stakeholders and developers, and sort of in keeping with how we've done the Making Connections campaign. And so it's through these partnerships that we get some economic development projects completed and realize the growth of the tax base and the creation of these new jobs. So what we're asking for in a general quick breakdown in the total cost of the improvements, which is still being, the design and the costs are still being worked out at, right now we're capping it at $6 million, and North Point's investment into this would be a total of $1.8 million regardless of the end costs. The local share is broken down into $4.2 million, city being $1.5 million, the county being $2.7 million. Do you have any questions at this time? Jill and I could answer.
There was an estimate,
I'm sorry.
there was an estimate given about how fast we would recoup our money off of tax. Is there any more you can elaborate on that formula? How can we demonstrate to the taxpayers with this investment that we are going to bring that money back to the pot?
Sure. Do you want, go ahead.
The developer, North Point Development, will be taking part in the Enterprise Zone program. So that offers them a tax credit, but there is still tax income that comes back to both the city and the county. And we projected that the 2.7 million contribution for the roadway would be repaid within 5 to 6 years.
That's off like the property.
Off the property tax revenue only. There will be other tax revenue that will come in to both the city and the county in income tax revenue as well as personal property tax revenue. Exactly.
That was my question, was the personal property. The personal property tax on this should be significant considering the
It
type
should
of
be.
building it is.
Right.
And that's the tax at the end of the year that's charged to business, right? The PPT, is that what?
Exactly.
Okay.
These buildings are being built on spec, and they are currently in the process of developing leasing strategy with tenants expected in the later part of this year. So we didn't run that into the calculations. What that would do then is see a payback by the county in a much quicker time frame than the outward projection of 5 to 6 years. It could be as much as repayment in 3 to 4 years.
And the 2.7 is being funded by what?
So the breakdown of how we're going to utilize our opportunities with the State Department of Commerce through a Maryland Economic Development Assistance Fund. They're going to bridge fund $2 million of that to the county, and from there we'll repay using the tax base that we just referred to.
And the developer pays 180, no matter if it's 6 million or 4 million.
1.8 million, yes.
Yeah.
Correct. The city council reviewed the same agreement that you have in front of you in a work session last Tuesday. They're scheduled to review it and their voting session this evening. And also during the work session, the agreement between the city and the developer was reviewed, and that's also on schedule for a vote by the city this evening.
I'd motion to approve.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. So, first of all, thank you both for working on this. I know this has been many weeks in the making, and there's great potential here. Our share and the city's share, okay. A comment you had made me question something, but I'm rereading something now, so I think I'm good. The county share is capped to 2.7 million, and the city share is capped to 1.5 million.
Right, and it's also important to note, as the project costs come in, if it's less than 6 million, our shares will go proportionally down towards the project, but the developers will remain unchanged.
I would point out on page 2, next to the last whereas clause addresses the question that you just floated, Wayne.
And the great thing about this is we're going to be seeing some revenue immediately, unlike many of the projects that we move forward with that we may not see any revenue for 15, 20 years. So this is a guarantee, and it's a good thing for Washington County.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say, the cooperation between the city and the county has been more than recognized by North Point in several open meetings, including the mayor of Hagerstown, which shows that collaborative effort between city and county and private business coming to Washington County. If I can maybe state this, they were looking at another state at first. Am I correct? Possibly somewhere else. But Washington County, with our cooperation and willingness to partner together, I think brought great accolades and led to this project coming to completion or beginning we see now. So with that being said, are there any more comments for
One last comment. I do want to point out, this project is being recognized by the state. Secretary Kathy Schultz, our Secretary of Commerce, actually used this project in her comments to hopefully defeat House Bill 223. She specifically mentioned this, and so how everyone's working together to make something happen. So.
Thank you for pointing that out.
For clarification on the financial end, $2 million was spoken about coming from the state as a bridge loan being paid back through the real estate tax, correct?
Yes.
The other amount up to 2.7, that 700,000, is it expected that if it reaches that 700,000, that amount would come from reserves?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted that for the record for my information and protection.
All right, no more comments, call for a vote. All in favor for the contract, say aye. Aye. 5-0, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, we have a couple items left on closed session. Would we all agree to go back in closed session and close that up? All right, motion to
Make a motion, close for closed session.
For the same reasons as was
previously stated. So I need a motion to go in closed session and a motion to adjourn, correct? Close that, motion go, and we'll come back out and adjourn. Thank you. 5-0.